Whenever you're ready. So we're set to go whenever you are ready.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is July 20th, 2020. I'd like to ask staff to read the participation information for this virtual meeting, please.
All right, thank you, Chair Lamb. So the Mendocino Historical Review Board meetings are conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation. This is pursuant to State Executive Order N-29-20. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at https://www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to PBS commissions at mendocinocounty.org or orally via telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made immediately available to the board, staff, and the general public as they are received and processed by staff and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting agenda on the Planning and Building Services website. All requests for telecomment must have been received by 10 a.m. this morning. Thank you.
Requested to speak under public expression. I'm going to ask if you could please call in now. Okay, so no calls. We thank you for understanding during this difficult time and thank you for your continued interest. And ask the clerk, could you please conduct roll call?
Board Member Kapler.
Present.
Board Member Roth.
Present.
Board Member Lamb.
Here.
All right, we have all present and accounted for. Thank you.
Proper notice been established for this meeting?
Yes, all items have been properly noticed.
I'd like to see an approval of minutes. And since we have none, then there's no need to approve them yet. Could you give us an update on the minutes, please, Julia?
Yes, so thank you. At this time, we have been working on preparing minutes over these last few months that we have not been able to hold review board meetings. However, given this, the length of the agenda that we had today, because of how many projects had been waiting, staff made the decision not to include any review of minutes at this meeting, so that way there could be adequate time to get through all the public hearing items. At your next meeting, you will have minutes for review and comment and action to be taken. Thank you.
Is that going to go back to February? So it'll include February and March and today's meeting?
Yes, actually, we're all the way back to December still. We need December, January, February, and March, and today.
Okay. All right.
Can I make a request that that staff send out those minutes not with the rest of the packet, but in advance, so that we have extra time to review them and think about them? Is that possible?
What I could do is when we get ready to mail our packets, I can email you a copy of those minutes, so that way you can look at them before the mail comes. So that way you'll get them a little bit quicker.
Great, the sooner the better. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have the election of chair and vice chair. I'd like to ask the clerk to conduct the vote.
So at the review board meeting in March, we had nominations for board member Roth to act as vice chair and board member Lamb to act as chair. So today we would be conducting the vote on that. So I'm going to start first with the chair vote. So this vote would be related to appointing board member Lamb as the chair of the Mendocino Historical Review Board meeting. So I'm going to start with board member Kapler.
Aye.
Board member Roth.
Quick clarification. This is a term going through when?
This is, so it'll be for as long as board member Lamb is on the board, which she is going to cover this underneath her report from the chair as well. but she is coming close to the end of her time on the review board in terms of her terms.
And I believe is that December of this year?
In 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
Stop smiling so much. So, aye.
Ian's chomping at the bit.
No,
Thank you. All right. And then, and so Board Member Lamb, what is your vote on this? Appointing you as the chair.
Oh, aye.
Okay. So with that, we have Board Member Lamb is now the chair. And now let's move on to the vice chair vote. So this is for Board Member Roth to become the vice chair. So let's start with Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
Okay. And now Chair Lamb.
Aye.
And Board Member Roth.
aye.
All right, with that, so we have the new chair is Chair Lamb and Vice Chair Roth. Thank you very much.
So, we'll move on to correspondence. Has the clerk or staff received any correspondence for items that are not currently on the agenda?
We have received no correspondence for items that aren't already on the agenda. All correspondence for items on the agenda have been posted and are available on our website.
Thank you. Okay, so we have report from chair. I'd like to start with good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for joining in on our first virtual Mendocino Historical Review Board meeting. I'd like to address the topic of volunteering to be on the Historical Review Board in hopes that there are a number of people watching this this presentation. I've seen many applications and situations that have transpired over the years that have brought up the need for oversight from the MHRB board. The importance of the historical board has become more clear to me over the years and given me a lot of appreciation for all the volunteers who've been on this board before me, some of who I've had the pleasure to work with. This board is ideally comprised of 5 board members who live in the town of Mendocino on either side of the highway. At this point, we're down to 3 board members. Each term is for 3 years and the term limit is 2 terms. I am nearing the end of my 2nd term in December, and I, for one, am concerned. If there are not 3 board members, there is not a quorum. Planning staff has been discussing this. If the board is not at least 3 board members, they may have to take the board to become a subdivision part of the planning department. This is concerning for many reasons. For one, planning is already stretched with many projects, and this is not their first choice. For a second and more important reason, the MHRB board has so far always been comprised of residents who live in the town of Mendocino. It has been of traditional importance that the board members live in the Mendocino district. Supervisor Ted Williams has been working to expand the area that a board member can live to include Point of View Estates, which is near the Hill House, and the area up Little Lake. There's also been discussion that someone in architecture or with a historical background may be on the MHRB board. This is preferable to having the planning and building staff run our meetings. If you live in an outlying area, if you live in historical zone A or zone B, or have a background in architecture or history, and would like to commit to a term on the board, your time is needed. We love our town of Mendocino. The Mendocino Historical Board is important and we need you to join. Please start with a 3-year term, try this out, volunteer to be on the board. The town needs you. So that's my report from chair. So we are going to move on to public expression. The board welcomes participation in the board meetings. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes per person and not more than 10 minutes for a proposed item on a subsequent agenda so that everyone may be heard. Items of public expression are limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board, which are not on the posted agenda, and items which have not already been considered by the board. No action will be taken. To submit public comments via telecomment, a request form must have been received by 10 o'clock a.m. the morning of the meeting, which was this morning. Do we have any requests for telecomment under public expression?
Thank you, Chair Lamb. We do not have any requests for telecomment for public expression. I do want to note, however, that we did receive an email, which we are working on uploading and scanning, that had some concerns about a tree being cut near Rotary Park, and we'll be looking into that. So that's getting uploaded to our website.
Are there any items on the consent calendar?
We have no items on the consent calendar.
First item that we have is case number MHRB 2020-0001, Dominique, which was continued from the March 3rd, 2020 agenda. Agenda item 12A, which is matters from staff, is going to be combined with this item regarding this solar. Has there been correspondence or telephone calls received related to this item? Right, Chair will ask.
Yes, there was correspondence received. Largely, those comment letters have all been posted. We are in the process of posting one additional letter that was received recently, just today. So we are uploading that to our website now. It should be uploaded by the time we finish with staff's presentation here. And then in terms of telephone calls, I'm just reviewing here. It appears that we do have the agents available on the line for this. And then we have one request for telecomment when we reach that point.
That agent be Ishve Ohm?
Yes, Ishvi Ohm, and then we also have Samantha Greenlee, also from Ohm Construction.
I'd like to ask staff to give a presentation regarding this item.
And I think, thank you, Chair Lamb, and I think I would actually like to start with, we do have Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski available on the line here. And I would like to go ahead and start with him because he's going to speak a little bit about how solar, the authority for the review board in relation to solar rights acts. And I think that'll be important to hear before we move into the discussion. So.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. Our office has previously researched the jurisdiction of the review board and issues that surround the Solar Rights Act, the California Solar Rights Act, and how those things impact each other. Primarily, one of our first opinions several years ago was looked at what if any authority does the review board have when it comes to being designated a federally historic place, historic district. And our review was that doesn't necessarily give any automatic authority to the board to deny certain projects. Going further, that research reviewed the California Coastal Act to the California Solar Rights Act. And the comparison there is that both are statutes that state they take precedence over local rules and authority. The California Coastal Act is what got Mendocino County the ability to adopt its own LCP, and by virtue of that, the chapter of the zoning code regarding the Mendocino Historical Review Board. So when it comes to looking at what the authorities are regarding solar panels in the town of Mendocino, we have two real equal level statutes. One is the California Coastal Act, and the other is the Solar Rights Act. For the most part, prior applications to the review board have dealt with historic preservation because the solar panels have been on buildings. The application today is regarding ground mount solar panels. And I was asked to review how the Solar Rights Act might impact the review board and the county's review of those panels. And the California Solar Rights Act talks about a city or county shall administratively approve applications to install solar energy systems through the issuance of a building permit or a similar non-discretionary permit. So what's the obligation there is that it must be administratively done, and it must be through a non-discretionary permit. That would mean that if the county is not able to add conditions to applications or permits for a solar energy system. Now, a solar energy system, it has a very specific definition that's referred to in the Solar Rights Act. And it refers to a different section in the Civil Code, but it talks about any solar collector or other solar energy device whose primary purpose is to provide the collection, storage, and distribution of solar energy for space heating, space cooling, electric generation, or water heating. So that, and then it also separately talks about how that would also include a structural design feature of a building that involves solar power. Well, in looking at how that term is defined, the fact that it considers separately design features of a building to a other solar energy device, I look at that and I say that the intent was to provide for ground-mounted solar, as it's clearly spoken to separately from building-mounted solar. So with that, that being the definition, and that's Civil Code 801.5, when the Solar Rights Act refers to that, and the Solar Rights Act separately has provisions that are specific to roof-mounted solar, and then also these more general provisions regarding any solar energy system. I think the same requirement for a city or county to have a non-discretionary permit process would apply to a ground-mounted solar array.
I just have a question for the Solar Rights Act for AB 2188. We had correspondence from the neighbor next door that the California Solar Rights Act was amended, section 65850.5 and section 714 of the Civil Code in 2014 expressly applying the act to, quote, small residential rooftop solar systems under 10 kilowatts. It does not include other types of solar energy systems. I wonder if you could address that.
So that would be a separate subdivision, and that's Government Code section 65850.5 that was added by that bill that is specific to the issue of the small residential rooftop solar system and creating a process for that. That was added to the existing Solar Rights Act, which again has its own reference to its definition of a solar energy system. So I don't believe that bill limited the Solar Rights Act from its prior language. I believe it just added more specific language in regards to those residential rooftop solar systems.
So, Chair, can I ask County Counsel a quick question? So in regular speak, what, and Matthew, I appreciate you joining us on this call. What level of jurisdiction do we have? I understand that we cannot deny solar panels on rooftops. What jurisdiction or what ability do we have to either approve or deny ground structure solar?
Because the definition used in the Solar Rights Act is that broad term of solar energy system, I don't think there's a difference in terms of the overall effect of the act and the county's ability to have a discretionary permit. I believe for ground mount solar, where it's the same situation as if it was rooftop or any other kind of structure, and that's where we have to have this non-discretionary process. And what has worked, in the town of Mendocino, the planning department has worked on a process where we have items come before the MHRB, but they can't be conditioned in particular. We can have discussions and requests can go back and forth, but in the end, the Solar Rights Act would still leave it to be a non-discretionary permit.
Okay, so what I understand is that we can't deny, but we can make recommendations as to what we feel would be appropriate with our larger code and historic village, right?
Correct. Recommendations, but not conditions of approval.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask a question?
Board recognizes Home Kapler.
Yes, thank you. I'm a little concerned that we've had two fairly lengthy memoranda from Ms. Oranguren raising legal issues, some of them dealing with the Solar Rights Act, but other issues dealing with fire safety and the environmental problems that may be raised by these solar collectors. I wonder if the county council has had a chance to actually, and these memos from Ms. Oranguren were submitted rather late. One of them was just a day or so ago. I wonder if county council has had a chance to actually examine both of the memos in detail and is in a position to respond to the issues that were raised by our neighbor, Tina Oranguren.
Deputy County Council Matthew Kudrowski. So I've spoken to both Chair Lamb and also to planning staff. And for today, I'm prepared to talk about the overall Solar Rights Act and how, again, that is a competing statute with the Coastal Act. I have not reviewed those memos. I'm not sure if staff has responses to those in particular.
Okay, well, one of my concerns here in having this discussion is just the fact that we've gotten a lot of information very, very late in the game, not only from Tina Oranguren, but also from the applicants with the changes to the plans. And I think we even got some new plans this morning to take a look at. And frankly, the pictures I've seen are almost unreadable because they're so small. We didn't get full print printouts. So I'm a little concerned that whether or not we're in a position to really look at all of the issues today. I know we've put this off last time, and last time we put it off because we thought it was a good idea to actually have a site visit, which I still think is a good idea. And apparently because of the virus situation, we're not able to do that. I don't understand quite why that is, but so I'm really questioning whether it's possible to perhaps put the final decision with regard to the solar panel question off to another meeting until the staff and the council has had a chance to look at some of these rather detailed memos that we've received and react to them.
If I may, through the chair, I would just like to encourage that maybe we still go through and hear the staff presentation, hear from the applicant as well, and then have more discussion and deliberation at that point amongst the board members. So
I agree. This application contains many more items than just the solar. The solar was the reason why we started this meeting off, so that we could include county council in this.
Right. Yeah. No, I didn't mean to say that we should put the whole thing off. I'm perfectly willing to make a decision on all of the items other than the solar today. But I'm just saying that the solar issue is the one that's gotten a lot of people excited. I think we've had maybe the greatest number of comments on that that we've had, certainly in my time on the board, and a lot of concerns about it. And I think there have been some legitimate questions that have been raised, and I'm just wondering if perhaps the solar decision can be put off to a later time.
I don't know about that. I tend to think that we have enough information that we can make a decision on whether or not, because of all the correspondence that we've received. I tend to think that MHRB is set up for the appearance and of the town, and so we are voting on the appearance, not whether or not there's a solar system or what constitutes a solar system. I was confused myself as to the panels apparently got moved, and then there was panels taken off the roof, and there's been a flurry of emails and changes and posts on the website in the past 4 or 5 days. So I understand Home's concern. It's a little confusing.
So if I may, I think unless any of the board members have additional questions for Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski right now at the onset, I would suggest that we go into the staff presentation so that Ms. Cherry could give us a update on sort of what these revisions are as well that you've received, and maybe help bring some clarity to the application in front of you.
Cherry, would you like to make a presentation, please?
Thank you. Yes. This is, as you had mentioned earlier, a continued item. The property is located at 44855 Pine Street in Mendocino, across the street from the community center, and it's an existing single-family home. The applicant requests to install exterior lighting, install ground-mounted solar, extend the cement walkway in the front, and install a brick patio, and construct a 6-foot by 8-foot wire mesh enclosure and fencing. There has been some changes to the exterior color since the review board considered this project last March. And in a memorandum, I did summarize that and recommended some changes to condition number 8. The exterior colors that are proposed are a green called Lafayette Green, which would be the trim color on the window mullions. And then the trim color on the house would be white, which is part of the Off-White historical collection from Benjamin Moore. And then the base color would be Man on the Moon. On the packet, the revised memo that was distributed last Friday to the review board, I included samples of the green, white, and off-white colors that are proposed. Also last Friday, the applicant revised the proposal, eliminating solar panels on the roofs and relocating the ground-mounted solar to be closer to the deck. It would be located on the south side of the south of the house and south of the deck that is attached to the house, between the deck and the proposed brick patio. It would be ground mounted, and today around noon distributed to the review board were some elevation drawings of what that would look like. And then also on Friday, we distributed to the review board some history of the front entry and cement walkways in town, some additional information there from some newspaper clippings. I can certainly go into more detail, but the project remains fairly close to what was proposed in January of this year and considered presented to the review board in March. The revisions really have to do with the trim colors on the mullions and on the trim of the house, and then also eliminating the roof mounted solar completely from the project and relocating the ground mounted solar so that it would be closer to the house. I want to note that solar panels tend to be non-reflective glass. I've seen a lot of comments that there is glare from solar panels, and the design, if it was a source of glare, it would be reflecting light outward and not capturing the energy of the sun. Solar panels are trying to capture the energy of the sun, and so they use a non-glare glass. That concludes my presentation, but I certainly am available and delighted to answer any questions that you may
have. The applicant's agent be prepared to make a a presentation at this time. Ishve Do we have the applicant?
Can you hear me?
There. We can hear you now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. So as you stated, this project was continued from March, and at that point in time, the goal was to have an on-site meeting to be able to talk about how to mitigate the view of the solar panels from all of the neighbors.
Right.
In light of the fact that we could not have that on-site meeting, we went ahead and redid the drawings, removing all of the objectionable solar panels that were on the roofs because those were the most visible, and putting the solar panels in the most invisible location on the site, tucked up right next to the deck, very well shielded from view from almost any angle. There may be a couple of angles, obviously, from adjacent properties where these things are visible, but they are certainly blended as much as is possible and still get solar exposure. Because in March, there was some question as to whether or not we could bring them that far back to the house and not get shaded by the buildings. We had a solar contractor come out to the site and measure the solar exposure at the location where they're proposed, and it was found to be adequate. The reason for the late information that you guys were getting was because we only got information. We only were requested to return in information, not a long time ago either. This has been a very fluid process, I think, for everybody involved. So we've done our best to bring you guys updated paperwork up to, like Juliana mentioned this morning, with regards to the size and configuration of the solar system. And then as far as the paint colors, we were just correcting an error in the last iteration of the proposal, and all of the colors that are proposed are from the historical collection. So honestly, my understanding of the way that you guys passed this most recent ordinance with regards to paint colors, we don't even really need to be discussing these paint colors. So I'm not totally clear, that I believe that everything is from the Benjamin Moore Historical Collection and in compliance with our expedited paint.
May I address that? I'll address that. The board has approved 2 colors. So by adding the mullion color, that was a 3rd color. I don't see that there's a problem with your colors. However, the reason why it's before the board is because it is not 2 colors, it is 3.
Okay, there are currently 3 colors on the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Just to
understand.
be clear,
I'm just letting you know why it's on the agenda.
okay, that makes sense. And I'll just point out that there is currently the mullions of the existing windows are, I would say, almost black. It's a very dark brown, or maybe not quite black. So we'd be in keeping with that. Let's see. Other than that, I mean, at the last meeting, my recollection is the only other thing besides the solar that we were having sort of discussions about had to do with the cement replacement of the cement sidewalk and bringing it out to the street. Everything else you all had felt was okay, and it hadn't warranted a whole lot more discussion. If that's my recollection.
Right. I recall the same thing. I questioned Juliana's, well, actually, I think this was from you, the sidewalks. There's We were sent a memo with sidewalks from October 17th, 1908 in favor here. I believe those are referring to sidewalks, maybe rather than on private properties. And I believe, anyway, so at this point,
So Deidre, that was just historical information with regards to the use of cement in the town as being something that at one point in time, historically, people were actually excited about.
right. I'm sure about sidewalks. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
And this particular property has existing cement sidewalks on it, and that we were trying to match from the front walk out.
At this point, the board would like to invite the public to call in for commentary if anyone would like to have public expression regarding this agenda item. Comments should be limited to,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
Comments should be limited to 3 minutes per person and not more than 10 minutes for a proposed item on a subsequent agenda so that everyone may be heard. So that means 10 minutes total of everyone calling in. Items of public expression are limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board, which are not on the posted agenda, and items which have not already been considered by the board. Okay, so were there any comments?
So we did have one request for telecomment, and I'm just looking to see that, and he is on the line. So we have Dan Potash here on the line. So Dan, go ahead and unmute yourself. And when I tell you, go ahead and begin your comments. You have 3 minutes, and I'll announce when you have 30 seconds remaining. So please go ahead and start your comments.
Great. Hello, everyone. Madam Chair, MHRB, I appreciate the time, and staff. I just want to make a quick comment. I know you've gotten a lot of opposition to this project, so I won't pile on to that, but I will refer to the County Council's prior legal opinion that I think it's in conflict with what he said earlier today, that this is a ministerial act and that you have no discretion, when in fact the prior legal opinions say that specifically that while you have very limited discretion, you can require changes to the solar project that do not, that allow for not increasing the cost of the system by more than $2,000, or I don't know if it's an and or an or, I think it's an or decrease the system efficiency by more than 20%. So I just want to remind folks that regardless of what you do, it just does seem that whether it's on this project or as a policy in the future, I think applications for solar projects should include what their cost is and what their efficiency is. Otherwise, I'm not sure how you can exercise your authority about approving solar projects while imposing certain restrictions within those statutory limitations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And so that concludes the request for telecomment that we have. I do just want to note that we did have up on the website 14 public comments related to this, and I believe we've just added a 15th as well that came in, and I'm just trying to refresh my page here to make sure I'm saying that correctly. Oh no, and pardon me, it is a total of 14 altogether, so those are up on the web. So that concludes all our requests for public comment under this item.
The board member has been able to review the commentary that has been posted on the website. Mr. Kaplan, Mr. Roth.
Hi, I wonder if we should split the discussion into two parts, one dealing with the solar part of it and the other with the rest of the requests. I don't know which you want to take first.
That would be fine. Let's start with the project, which we felt on the building I believe that we approved many of those items on the last meeting. Is that correct, staff? Julia?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat the question again?
Absolutely. I'm wondering, on the actual building, we had already gone down the list and approved most of the items that were presented. I believe there was just the sidewalk,
Didn't they explicitly say at the last meeting that they couldn't
that
make it?
and the solar that was, and
Yeah,
those-
and
is that correct?
yes, I believe that the board went through and you didn't make a formal motion for approval, but you did discuss those various items and talked about which ones you had concerns with. So you would still need to make a formal action today, but that does seem correct.
Chair, can I ask a question, please? If I understand correctly, it's got to be an all up or all down, right? And we can't just pick it apart and say what we like and what we don't like. We can't. Well, I guess what I'm saying is we can't do a partial approval. We have to either thumbs up or thumbs down.
Why not?
If I may, through the chair, with any sort of action that you may take today, I mean,
Yeah,
you could
please.
recommend to approve certain aspects of the application and deny other aspects. What I think we've run into challenges before is where the board may have wished to approve a certain portion today, but allow the remainder to be discussed at a future meeting date. And that's what presents some challenges. So I hope that provides clarity.
Thank you.
We're going to close public expression and discuss amongst the board members. So,
Well,
yeah.
if I could start in terms of
Sure, that would be great. Please do.
the non-solar issues. With regard to the exterior lighting, I have no problem with the proposal. With regard to the brick patio, I have no problem with the proposal. With regard, there's a 6 by 8 foot wire mesh enclosure. I don't have any problems with that. The fencing, I don't think there are any issues with that. Exterior painting, I have no problems with the 3 colors. That's okay. The water tank, I do think it's important that we require that it be shielded. I believe they talked last time about perhaps putting up some sort of a wooden fence around the water tank to shield it from view. The same thing for the propane tank. The stairs for the existing deck, again, no problem. The generator, I think last time they agreed that they would shield that somehow with some sort of wooden fencing material of some kind. There were new doors and garage door. I don't think that's an issue, and the arbor is very minor, and that's not an issue. That leaves the brick, the extended cement walkway as an issue for me. I think we talked about this last time, and I questioned the fact that in general, the board is not in favor of cement as a surface for walkways. We prefer some other material. And I asked why it couldn't be brick, and I guess I would ask the question again today. Why can't the whole walkway be a brick walkway?
Or it could also be
Could be other material.
flagstone or
Exactly.
I believe that the applicant was furthering the cement sidewalk that was already installed there, and they felt like it looked a little odd just to have a little piece of it and not continue it out. So that was the argument that they had regarding the cement sidewalk. I'd like to ask staff about the cement. Does that add on to the living space? Because I know that a deck does add on to the actual living space. Is that the same as cement?
So
think
it's,
that's come up in
I
the
think we are,
past.
if I may, through the chair.
Thank you, Juliana.
think what you're asking about is lot coverage and the allowance
Correct.
for lot coverage. So decks that are less than 30 inches in height are constructed from wood, those are not pervious surfaces. We do not add those towards lot coverage.
Okay.
Patios that are, say, deck or walkways that are made from cement, those do increase lot coverage and impervious surfaces. So those are included in lot coverage, the same as a roof on a structure would be impervious and contribute towards lot coverage. If you give me a moment, I can review the documents to see what the lot coverage allowance is and how it's represented in the application, because I'm not seeing a discussion of that in the staff report. It'll just take me a minute to look for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Chair, while staff is reviewing that, do we want to continue discussion or?
Yes, let's go ahead and continue discussion. The next item is exterior lighting, I believe. Do we want to talk about the exterior lighting? I believe they were all downward shielded lamps that are proposed.
I guess I would ask the question
If I may, through the chair, one of the revisions to the July staff report is an exhibit of the exterior lighting in the landscaped area, and you'll find that on staff report page A-13, A13. And then also staff is recommending as a kind of a standard condition, condition 7, outdoor lighting shall be shielded. Illumination shall be reflected downward and positioned in a manner that does not allow light glare to extend beyond the property boundaries.
Thank you, Juliana, Cherry. So do we want to move on to the next item to discuss while Juliana is researching the lot coverage? We can discuss exterior colors. I don't have a problem with the colors. They're all from the historic collection.
Right, neither do I. It's
So-
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Member Kaplan was going through a list of his things. Do you want to finish that and let us know what else you had in mind?
We're just going down the list. So we're talking about paint colors right now. Do you have any comments on the paint colors, Ian?
Well, actually, what I was going to say, sort of the whole thing is the only issue I have with the non-solar stuff is, again, the concrete. And I would like to see permeable surfaces as opposed to non-permeable surfaces. So where the sidewalk is contiguous across the front of the property, I don't have a problem maintaining that concrete because that's sort of a consistency. But on the property itself, I'd like to see a permeable surface, non-concrete, as opposed to the concrete. Everything else with the lighting, colors, everything with that, I'm totally good with, and I appreciate Member Kapler's bringing up the fencing of the mechanical equipment.
So is okay. The mechanical equipment, they had already proposed that they were going to be fencing those items, and I believe we got a new drawing that we got today with the elevations, which shows the elevations. I don't know about if the I believe that applicant was did propose to cover the water holding tank. I think that was mentioned in one of the correspondence letters that we received, and I don't see that in the staff report. Juliana, was that addressed?
The screening of the water storage tank?
If there is a water storage tank, will it be screened? Was that on the, I don't see it on the
I'm just looking
permit,
at
and
the
that was-
revised site plans that were received.
Right, that was brought up by one of the correspondence that we received. On the plot plan, it does show that there is a 2,500 gallon water tank, and I'm not seeing that that's being covered.
The water tank is sitting out there already, and it's quite an eyesore. And I do hope it gets screened very quickly. I think there were three things that were to be screened: the water tank, the propane tank, and the generator.
Can we go back and ask the applicant? Is the applicant still with us? Mr. Ohm?
Yes, we still have the applicant on the line here. So Mr. Ohm, if you could unmute yourself here, or I can do it for you.
Address if the water tank was going to be screened. We don't see that on the application.
Yeah, fine. We discussed that back in March, and the applicants agreed to screen both the water tank, the propane tank, and the generator. No problem. We also dug the water tank in a little bit to make it less visible.
Thank you. I recall discussing it. However, I brought that up because when someone makes a motion, that'll have to be included.
Great.
Mr. Holm or Mr. Roth or Mr. Kapler. Okay. Are we still waiting for Juliana? Have you been able to discern the
So
lot
I
coverage?
I had an opportunity, thank you, to
Thank you.
review the lot coverage. And the lot coverage allowance is 25%, and what's proposed would be 15%. So there's a generous 10% of unused lot coverage at this location. Also, if I may, through the chair, recommend a possible condition 10 based on the board's discussions from last March and today. Fencing shall shield the water storage tank, propane tank, and generator.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good.
Okay, so back to the board. Do we want to discuss the solar panels? We've discussed everything else. We're down to the solar panels.
Well, where did we come out on the cement walkway? Are we?
The cement, well, it wasn't a matter of lot coverage. It will have to be, as the chair, either you or Ian will be making the motion. So when you make the motion, it sounds like permeable materials are advised in the motion that's made, if that's the way that you're so inclined.
If we get to speak to that again.
Can we clarify, Ian, what you're asking for?
I'm looking for a, on the sidewalk, I'm okay with the continuous concrete because that's sort of ease of travel on the public right of way, the sidewalk. On the property itself, I want to see permeable, non-concrete.
Okay, I think there's some confusion here because I don't think we're talking about the sidewalk. I think we're talking about the pathway or the walkway, which is of cement right now, which is on the property itself. It's not a public sidewalk.
So it's the driveway and the pathways, right?
Yeah.
Can you see if we get clarification?
And I would like to see that as not as a impermeable surface that creates runoff and water flow that is going to be give away wash and everything else. I'd rather see something that's permeable that can absorb the moisture and be better and harmonious with our natural environment.
But are we just talking about the extension of the existing cement walkway or the whole cement walkway being torn out and replaced with a permeable surface?
What's your driving force?
Well, I'd like to see the whole cement walkway taken out and replaced.
And I think if they're going to do an extension on it, and it's not going to be cement, then I think the whole thing would kind of look silly. So I would be in favor of removing the impermeable surface that's there, so the extension and the existing are consistent.
Exactly.
Thank you. So let's move on and discuss the solar panel array between board members.
I have a number of questions for Mr. Ohm with regard to the solar arrays.
I'm sorry for the applicant.
Yes.
Can we bring Ishfei back for the board to ask some questions regarding specifically the solar?
Yes, we have them available on the line here. We will keep them on the line until you finish your discussion here.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, my first question is whether the solar arrays are intended to provide the sole source of power for the house.
No.
Okay.
It'll provide energy to a battery backup and to the grid, on a meter sharing basis.
Okay, and why are these solar arrays absolutely necessary as opposed to other power options, including a backup generator?
So there will also be a backup generator. The big advantage to solar, obviously, and one of the big advantages is it does not burn or consume fossil fuels. And that is a benefit both to the homeowners and to the global greenhouse gas initiatives. The other advantage is it will provide power in a quiet manner when power is out, because there will be no generator running. Thirdly, when there is electricity and sun, it will reduce the energy bill of the clients because they will be then reversing their meter on a grid-tied solar system.
And why are so many of these ground-mounted arrays necessary?
So this system has actually been sized way down because we originally had solar on the roofs as well. We were trying to achieve close to 10,000 kilowatt system. We're down at around 4 at this point, which is, for the cost of investment in a solar system, that's kind of the very bare minimum, because there's a lot of additional equipment besides the panels themselves, the inverters and batteries and such, that at very small scale no longer makes sense.
So would it be able to power the whole house?
No, it will be able to power critical loads during outages. So you would be able to keep lighting, refrigeration, and that's and water pumping available during power outages, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. So it basically performs the same function as a backup generator, but you're going to have both.
There would be both, correct.
Mm-hmm. And the question of the size and the height of the proposed solar arrays, how big is this solar array?
If you could clarify that, because I understand the solar system's been downsized, but the drawings that we received very late last week, it's impossible to tell what the dimensions are.
Yeah.
It is about 6 feet tall and
Tall?
6 and about 20 feet long.
Wow.
And how wide?
how wide. So it's on an angle. From front to back, the depth is probably 9 feet.
Wow.
So we're talking about 180 square feet.
Approximately, maybe Sonny can give me those numbers exactly. I'll have those, I can have those numbers to you exactly, the size of that footprint in a second.
Did I just hear that the solar array is 6 feet tall
At the back, because
And
it's on an
and
angle. So
20 feet long?
correct. At the back, it's 6 feet tall at its highest point, and it slopes down to the ground, and it's probably 18 inches from the ground at the front.
I have a question. Aside from you, who they've hired, and their solar person who they've hired, has the applicant, now we know that they've received at least 10 and maybe more very disturbed letters from all the neighbors that they are proposing to be living near. Do they have even one letter of someone, of a neighbor that is in favor for this this design, which is obviously not going to fit in with the historic view of the town? Is there anyone that has come forward with a positive reinforcing letter, hip hip hooray, this is such a great idea? Has there been any kind of...
I would say that the California legislature did that in mandating solar energy for the entire state. All new construction in 2020 is going to be mandated to have solar panels on it. So I don't know, specifically, I didn't see anything in the record either, but we did take all of the solar panels off of the roofs, which back in March was the primary concern and was the most visible location. So I do believe that the applicants have, in their very best form, tried to mitigate all of the concerns of the neighbors with regards to this solar array. It's not visible from very many locations at this point in time. You're not going to be able to locate solar in this town and have it be invisible from all angles. I mean, it doesn't exist. So we're going to be faced with how to mitigate those people's concerns. And I believe that the applicants really did do that. They cut their system size in half and removed all the solar panels from the roof.
There's no chance that they would say, we're happy with having electricity and our generator, and we'd like to make peace with the neighbors and perhaps take out the solar. That doesn't seem like there's any chance of that, or...
Well, I think I can bring that to them. I would just point back to the board that this issue is not going to go away. You're going to have other solar applications in the future. And I think that it's time to really wrestle with the issue and realize that these folks really have tried to mitigate the solar concerns. We're going to have solar panels in Mendocino. And so how to deal with that, I think, is something we should not, force
this
these
is
folks.
setting a precedence. For me, I don't see a problem with the solar panels on a building, on the roof. That's where they've traditionally been, but I don't know what the rest of the board feels. I feel like the neighbors that are next door, the people who visit the cemetery are going to be looking at a 6 foot tall, 20 foot long, 9 foot wide array of solar panels in someone's backyard. This is a historic town that's known to be very picturesque. It attracts artists, photographers, people who want to paint. That doesn't sound very harmonious with what Mendocino has traditionally been.
So we were, Deidre, sorry, we were willing to put the solar panels on the roof, but in March, it was my understanding that everybody was primarily concerned about the solar panels on the roof, and we were asked if we pulled them back up into sort of the courtyard. You'll notice that the building forms kind of a courtyard, and these solar panels are sucked all the way back up against the deck. And by doing that, they're visible, like you mentioned, from the graveyard, and maybe from an upstairs window of one of the neighbors, but from no other location are they visible. So they're quite well concealed with a patio in front. I think if you put them on the roof, they would become a lot more visible to a lot more people.
Well, I think one of the reasons that I suggested we really do need a site visit is because there's the question of whether you can see it or not from the cemetery, which is certainly a public area. And you can certainly see it from the neighbor houses. There's no question about that. But
okay, so maybe a way for us to proceed is for you guys to go ahead and approve the project, and I'll get my clients to agree to not build the solar at this point in time, and come back yet with if they want to proceed with the solar, we'll come back with another application for solar. And you guys can wrestle with solar again, because I think
that's a good, I think that's a very good solution. That's a very good solution, and thank you for being willing to compromise.
I would like. Can I mention one other thing before I get cut off?
Go ahead. Go, please.
Because once I'm muted, I'm muted. To go back to the sidewalk. Okay. We have an existing concrete sidewalk on the property. We've agreed to make the back patio out of brick because it doesn't feel contiguous to that sidewalk. The existing sidewalk, we need an extension from the existing sidewalk out to the street. And there used to be a concrete set of steps leading up to the deck. We got rid of those concrete steps to build wooden steps because it would be less concrete visible. Mm-hmm. But we do need a piece, we need to tie on to an existing sidewalk, the grades of which are already set. So it becomes rather problematic to patch a piece of brick walk into a concrete sidewalk because it just looks strange. And we can't put brick over the top of the existing sidewalk because then our elevation will be too high. And the proposal to demolish the existing sidewalk and replace it all with brick is a rather expensive idea, and my client's budget is already being pushed as they restore this home, in town here. So I really would, and we are way under the lot coverage, as was pointed out, in terms of the impervious material. We're not asking to pave the driveway. That's going to maintain and be gravel. We're only looking for the walkway from the street to tie onto the existing sidewalk that's there, and up to a set of wooden steps going up the porch. So I just wanted to point out that it's really not a lot of cement that we're asking to add. All the large surfaces, the patio and the driveway and everything, we are going to keep as impervious materials.
Can I say for the record, I don't have a problem with the cement sidewalk. So we can go back to the board and discuss it again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Home and Ian, it's back to discussion from the board. I feel like that's a good solution to take out the solar and have them, if we approve the project with a motion that denies the solar, and they will come back with a new application in the future addressing just the solar panels. That'll also give them time to put together a package that shows the actual dimensions. It was surprising to me to hear it's 6 feet tall and 20 feet long. That's the first I've heard that. So that, I think that was a good compromise on their part and a good solution. As for the sidewalk, I feel like just the area being across from the community center, that it's not noticeable. The community center has a huge parking lot right there that's all paved. So I feel like it fits in with the neighborhood. in my opinion, but go ahead and you can voice your opinions as well. Home?
Well, I was just going to ask Ian on the sidewalk, what material are you thinking about?
So with all due respect, I haven't had a chance to talk about solar. So I'd like to get my 2 cents in at some point. On the sidewalk, the sidewalk itself, I'm looking at Google Maps right now to the screen to my right. And I don't see any connection. Maybe this is like outdated, but I don't see a connection from the house to the sidewalk. All I see is dirt. And what I like to see is I don't need to interrupt the sidewalk itself. The sidewalk should be cement because that's the safest passage. Off the sidewalk, to go from the sidewalk to a brick or to a paver or to something of that consistency, I don't see that being a blight or a problem. And I'm sorry, Shrey, I disagree with you. But leaving the public way of the sidewalk going to the house, I think would be much more aesthetically attractive if it's an impermeable surface straight to the nice wooden steps that you put in for the house itself. So that's my comment on
I
the,
believe that there is a section of the pathway that is cement. They're just trying to extend that. That's
And-
already there.
and well, maybe
Maybe you're
a-
not seeing it on Google Earth and maybe that's outdated, but on their application, it refers to that.
Yeah, you're right, Deirdre. I mean, I know the property, and there's an old cement pathway on the property, and I
Yeah.
think what they're
And
asking.
it's an arts and crafts house. It seems like it fits in. There's a lot of pavement across the way at the community center. I just don't see that that's if they're going to comply with moving on with the solar to a separate issue in the future, that I don't see a problem with it myself. So go ahead.
with all due
Ian.
respect, pavement is the pavement that exists is too much, and to add on to it is not acceptable to say that it's already there. Let's add more. That's my feeling. No, I don't think that just because there's a bunch of concrete we should add more and just ignore it. That's my thought. And that goes to the global warming, and it goes to everything else. So my 2 cents about that. About the solar, I have owned a house in the past for about 8 years before I sold it, and I put a 4 kilowatt system on the house with 2 adults and 2 boys, and that was very sufficient. It was on a Mediterranean style stucco with a flat roof, and it was on the roof, and you can only see it if you kind of look closely to see. I applaud the applicant for taking it off of the garage, off the roofs. I think that was a very brilliant way to give to the neighbors. I'm looking again at that map, and I'm looking at the neighbors next to it.
Are we discussing this between board? Because they've already agreed that they're going to take the solar, and we won't even have to discuss this. It's going to be on a new application down the line.
Yeah, I have, you guys, you and Member Kapler have had a chance to discuss solar. I have not.
I see. So you'd rather discuss it now.
I want to weigh in as you two have.
Okay.
I want to be able to put my 2 cents in, and then
Yeah.
we
Be
can go.
good, helpful for them in the future as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I love the idea of solar. I applaud it. I understand there's a juxtaposition between solar and the historical village that we live in. It's a historic district. I understand the size of it, but it is tucked up against the house. The only place, unless you're on the south side of either neighboring property, it'd be hard to actually see. And I think it's the one to the east that's going to be more able to view it. And it's the cemetery. Anyone who walks the cemetery could see it. As we are proposing wrapping the water tank and the generator, and what's the third item?
The propane tank.
Propane tank. As we're looking to provide a visual block around those, as large as it is, it's tucked into the house. It's not on the roofs, providing a visual barrier on the south side of the solar array that's ground mounted so that you wouldn't see it. from the cemetery or from the neighboring properties, I'd be okay with it. And home, the
With
issue.
what?
around-
With the
issue around-
fencing?
Excuse me?
With the fencing? I don't know what you're,
A visual barrier, something that
a
is
visual barrier. Uh-huh.
high enough so that you don't see it from next door or the cemetery. And as long as they're putting the panels up, why not just erect a fence or lattice work with
Which
vinyl
panels up?
or what have you?
Which panels up? The solar panels?
Yes,
I'm not gonna agree to the project unless
I understand.
solar panels are moved to a different item.
I'm expressing my opinion
Okay.
about how I feel about the solar.
Okay.
I'm just taking my.
I thought I thought we're done with the solar and we moved on to
I haven't had.
discussing.
Both of you had a chance to weigh in about the solar, and I haven't. So I'm putting my 2 cents in.
And I thought we did, you just did. Okay, go ahead, Ian. We have 7 other items on the board, but go ahead and discuss more on the solar. If the applicant is willing to move the solar to a different application, I think that discussion can take place when they bring it forward to the board in the future.
I understand that, but the two of you have discussed the solar, and I want a chance to put in my 2 cents right now so that it goes on the record.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
So, into home, the battery setup is there to power when it's not, when you don't have the sunlight or when you run out of the solar panel. So I get the concept, Ishrei, I really do. And I'll just leave it at that. I'll wait for it to come forward for the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Can I just make one more comment on the
yeah,
solar?
home, recognizing home Kepler.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of denying it at this point and then talking about it at a future session. Because there are a number of questions that have been raised about solar, and this is a very important issue, not just for this project, but for the town as a whole. And we don't have answers to them. There are several legal questions that have been asked, and apparently the council has not had a chance to look at the 2 memos from our neighbor Tina Orangaran, and she raises questions concerning the fire safety of the panels and also the toxicity of the solar arrays and their impact on local groundwater. And I'd like the staff to look into those 2 questions and to come back to us and give us some answers as to whether or not those are valid concerns that have been raised. They're certainly important. My well is very shallow, and if this is going to cause a problem with my water, I'm not happy about it at all. So I think there are a number of questions that are not answered, a number of legal issues that have been raised that have not been looked into. So I think it's a good idea to look at it again at a future session and not approve the solar part of this issue at this time.
Thank you.
So,
Mr.
If I
Go
may,
ahead,
through the
Julia.
chair. So my only comment here is I just want to be clear. What I heard throughout this discussion was the agent withdrawing the request for the solar at this time. So not that you're taking an action to deny the solar, but here verbally on the record, and the minutes will note this, that the applicant withdrew the request for solar from this present application. So just to be clear,
Thank you.
does not include the solar array at this time.
Thank you. Correct. So, Mr. Roth or Mr. Kepler, would you like to make a motion?
All right, I'm willing to agree with you on the cement walkway, and so I would make a motion to approve. What's the number of this thing?
2020-001.
Yeah, MHRB permit request 2020-0001, subject to the standard conditions that are set out in the staff report, and subject to the water storage tank, the propane tank, and the generator being screened or concealed by fencing or some similar means.
Can
Another
we say
than that-
wooden fencing?
Wooden, yes.
Thank you.
Wooden fencing, yes.
Thank you.
If I may, staff has a clarifying question. Condition 8, do you want it as amended in the memorandum from today so that it includes the third color for the window mullions?
Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
okay. Yes,
If that motion is clear, I will second that motion. And I think we infer in that the applicant is going to be withdrawing solar from this application at this time.
Is that part of your motion?
I think that has, yes, that has to be part of the motion, that the applicant has withdrawn the solar question, the solar proposal from this application.
Thank you. Julia, call for vote.
Thank you. So that was a motion by Board Member Kathler, a second by Vice Chair Roth. So we're going to start with our roll call vote. So let's start with Vice Chair Roth.
Aye.
Okay, Board Member Kappler
Aye.
and Chair Lamb.
Aye.
So with that, the application is approved, noting that the solar was withdrawn from the application as of today with the amended conditions as specified by staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, board, this is Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. I will be stepping out of the meeting. I wish you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good one.
you. Okay, so the next item that we have on the agenda is item number MHRB 2020-0002. The applicant is Spring Pond Properties, LLC. The applicant is requesting to construct a 152 square foot addition to an existing commercial building. I'd like to staff, if they would like to make a presentation regarding this application. Juliana?
Thank you. Delighted. Juliana Cherry, Planner 3 with Mendocino County. As you mentioned, Chair, the applicant requests to construct a 152 square foot addition onto the alley side of Harvest at Mendoza's. Install an exhaust fan, which is a commercial exhaust fan, and makeup air unit on the new roof. All materials shall match the existing exterior of Mendoza's. The existing door will be reinstalled in the new exterior wall. So Mendoza's is interested in finding a little bit of space for a chicken roastery. And behind the store, sort of sandwiched between the warehouse and the store, there's a small area footprint that's really not visible unless you go through the back ways to put in 152 square foot area for the roastery. I would like to kind of just skip right to the conditions. Staff is recommending a couple of conditions: that all exterior doors and window frames shall be made from wood, and the exterior base and trim color shall match the existing exterior building colors. Finally, condition 9 is a repeat, and staff is recommending that it only needs to be said once, which would be condition 3. So condition 9 is recommended to be deleted. This project we did discuss with the property owner if it had been designed slightly differently. It could have been exempt from an MHRB permit, but the applicant wanted to pursue the design as proposed. If you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana. Would the applicant, Mr. Kelly Grimes, like to make a presentation?
Yes, and just bear with us one moment while we pull them over into the meeting here. And
Right.
then we will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Grimes. We have Mr. Grimes on the line now. So Kelly, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and take away any presentation you have.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
All right.
Just state your name for the record, please.
Well, this is Kelly Grimes, agent for Spring Pond Properties. And I really don't have any presentation. I think the sheet of drawings pretty clearly shows that on the back side of the alley, do you all three know where I'm talking about when I talk about the alley side?
yes,
Excellent. If you'd walked back there, there's a little shed. I think that existing east elevation drawing at the top of the sheet shows pretty clearly what exists. There's a little shed there that's got some utility things in it. And we're just proposing basically to extend that shed all the way across. I think the drawing right below it shows it pretty clearly. There's two side views on the right-hand side there that show cutting through. There's going to be a commercial exhaust system, and then you need a makeup air for that. So there are two fairly good-sized commercial units on the roof of there. And that's fully shielded from town. It's in the back of the alley. Yeah, I put the parapet there on the market side to the right of that new drawing, just to show that all of this is well below any roof lines. It's not visible from anywhere, unless you're an employee of Harvest Market.
Mr. Grimes, does the public have any comments? Is there any public that is planning to telecomment?
No, we have no members of the public wishing to provide telecomment, and we received no written correspondence either for this item. Thank you.
Does the board have some questions for the applicant, Mr. Kapler or Mr. Roth?
I've got no questions. I'm happy with the proposal.
And likewise, it's pretty straightforward. Thank you, Harvest, for coming forward with this, and looks fine. Now I understand why they call it a chicken hood edition.
So I have one question for Kelly. Do you have a problem with the staff recommendation for the wooden doors and the color of paint matching the existing building?
No, I believe that was the intention. And the wooden door, we're just reusing a door that exists that is made out of wood. It's got wood frame. It's all wood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roth, Mr. Kapler, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion.
Seeing that there isn't much, unless anyone has any, I'll propose to approve
Okay.
application 2020-0002 with the modifications in the standard conditions as noticed.
Would you like to address the paint color in the doors in your
Yes.
motion?
The paint color be matching existing, and the door be the existing door that's going to be reused is make sure that that is wood.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that?
I have a second.
If I may, for clarification through the chair, does the motion include deleting condition number 9,
Yes.
which was the duplicating condition?
Yes.
Yeah.
The motion maker says yes.
Thank you. All right,
Excellent. So we have a motion by, oh, I apologize.
Vote, please.
Sorry, I apologize speaking over you, Chair.
No problem.
So that was a motion by Vice Chair Roth, a second by Board Member Kapler. So we'll start with a vote here. So let's start with Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
All right, and Board Member Roth
Aye.
and Chair Lamb.
Aye.
So the motion carries 3-0, noting that that was the motion approved with deleting condition of approval number 9 and supporting staff's recommendation for the wood doors and paint to match the existing exterior. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on. The next item that we have up for review is MHRB 2024. The applicant is Oriana Onstad with Skermaglia Construction. So would staff like to present a presentation regarding this application? Juliana.
Thank you. Juliana Cherry, Planner 3 with Mendocino County. This is a very simple application. The stairs are in disrepair and reconstructing them in their existing configuration would not meet building standards. So the applicant is proposing to build them in the same location with a slightly different configuration and to paint them the white color that they currently are when the work is done. So the staircase arrangement would be slightly different than what you see at 45280 Main Street today. It would need to be about approximately 18 inches more away from the building than it is today. Staff is recommending fairly standard conditions. Condition 7 has to do with outdoor lighting, that it be down shielded, and people can install lighting that does meet the standard without an MHRB permit. There's an exemption to install lighting that meets these standards. Staff is recommending condition 8 that the exterior base and trim colors shall match existing exterior base colors. And finally, condition 9, which again, it seems to be a duplicate of condition 3. So looking at this permit shall be subject to securing all necessary permits for the proposed development from the county. Oh, I see why we're including condition 9 is because it says coastal development permits. There are times when CDPs are needed. I don't believe this particular project would require a CDP, but condition 9 gives notice of that. I don't know, maybe Julia might have some insight on condition 9.
Okay, does the applicant would like to, or representation like to say anything about the project and field questions?
Thank you. So we did have one person sign up as the agent for the project, Tony Skramalia, but I understand that they are not on the line at this time. So I would say let's continue forward. And if they do appear on the line, we'll bring them in. But as it is right now, we don't have anyone available from the application.
Thank you. So I was going to ask the question of the banisters. Perhaps staff has discussed this with Skramalia Construction because in the past, and this was before I was on the board, there was a banister that was installed and they used what appeared to be indoor banisters on the outside. And these are very unique, these flat cutout banister. I don't know if that's what it's called. The banisters, the things that go this way. What is that called? Is that the banister?
The ball.
Picket?
Is that what you call it underneath the banister? You got the banister and then you have the...
I've heard them called pickets.
Okay, the pickets. And that is somewhat of a concern because those pickets look historic. I'm wondering if anyone's able to, if we're able to say without the applicant calling in that would be, that we would like the pickets to be rebuilt the same as what they were. Is that possible to be able to be put into a motion? Julia, I guess I don't know if that would be a Julia or Juliana question.
If I may, through the chair, in talking with the contractor, his intention is to have the stairs look strikingly like they do today.
Thank you.
Are we back at the board level?
Well, I was going to ask Julia if anyone is waiting for to make public expression.
We have no requests for telecomment and no public comment letters submitted for this item.
Okay, so now we're going to come back to the board
Okay.
for discussion. Ian Roth, what would you?
Yeah, I was looking at the application. It says the new staircase will be built of redwood materials and painted the same colors existing. And as stated before, and Chair, I was looking at the same thing where I don't have any drawings of what it should look like in the future. But I think it's very appropriate that it be replaced. I like the fact that it's 18 inches away. I would be happy to support the project. Again, everything has its day and its time. And this is rather unique, and you can see the scrambling of pickets at the foot of the stair. So I would be happy to support the project with its unique, if we call them pickets, or the vertical members that are between the railings, however you want to call it. My only question to staff is, there's a code states that you need to have no more than 4 inches between the vertical members of a railing. And I don't know if that's the case of this, but I'm sure that the building department would be able to put that as a condition. So I'd like to see, as unique as it is, I'd like to be able to see the same thing being replicated. I don't know if there's an application to replace the railing at the top of the deck, because that looks in the same condition as the rest of it. But harmony and consistency and historical support meeting building code. So I applaud them to do the work. I'm glad they came in front of us before they did it. I'd like to see the same visual that they have now with those vertical members, quote, pickets. And again, if they're going to continue past the stair and replace those on the deck, that we maintain that consistency and have it meet code. That's all I have.
And pardon my interruption, review board members. I do want to note we do have the applicant present on the line here now, Mr. Anthony Scrimalia. I don't know if you wish to hear from them at this time.
Hello?
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, hi. This is Tony Scrimalia.
Hello. Hello, Tony. So the board has already discussed somewhat your project. The only question was if the pickets are going to remain the same look as the ones that are there.
Yes, they'll have the same profile. And I was watching. I didn't expect the previous one to go so quickly, so I was trying to get on. So I heard what you said. It will. Basically, it's going to look exactly the same with no changes, except for that it'll be far enough away from the building so you don't smash your head on the eave of the roof when you walk. So I actually saw a permit to rebuild it the way it is, but said there was clearance, so that's why we are asking just to move it out approximately 18 inches away, so that when you get to the top of the stairs, you don't hit your head on the eave of the roof. So the pickets will be exactly the same as we're going to use the template.
Thank you. Do board members have any further questions for the applicant?
I did have a quick one since I was going before. I'll jump on. Thank you. Tony, are you looking at the railing around the deck itself? Is that going to be replaced as well?
I was going to comment on that too. So someone has done a little bit of repair work in the past. Oh, am I live here?
Yes.
You're live and we can hear you. I believe that's a repair and replace. I was going to say that when you were talking about that, but I don't believe they need board permission for that.
I didn't think so either. And we were going to do some repair work on that too, but exactly the same, not changing any of the profiles of the pickets or anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Holm Kapler.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment here because I understand that technically this question had to come before the board, but I must say I'm really bothered that you have to pay over $700 for approval when we're only talking about replacement of rotten stairs and complying with code requirements. I mean, we're basically repairing here. And yes, you know, it's moved a few inches because of the code requirements. does this, is there no discretion here to say, well, this doesn't really have to come before the board?
Well, it's already before us, so I think that discussion, I think that might hold true for future. Perhaps staff can make note of Mr. Kapler's comments.
Yes, if I may, through the chair, I'll just note that what we can do is discuss amongst ourselves as staff, but maybe create an internal policy that we would want to have blessed by the review board related to if there was minor changes, such as just to bring it up to code standards, that may be able to go under the exemption as opposed to underneath a full review board application. So duly noted, and we'll get working on that.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to call for back to board discussion. Is there any discussion that the board would like to discuss amongst ourselves?
Nope.
No. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Kapler and Mr. Roth.
I think Ian should make the motion.
Sure.
Vice Chair Roth.
Thank you, Chair. I would move approval of MHRB application 2020-0004. And that would be as presented by staff, with one thing that has been included in the report, and that's that the pickets or vertical members along the stair match existing, so that the design is true to replacement.
Second.
Julia, I'd like to call for a vote, please.
All right, thank you. So that was a motion by Board Member Roth, including that the additional requirement that any pickets or vertical members on the stairway match existing. That was a second by Board Member Kapler. So now for our voice vote, Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
Board Member Roth.
Aye.
And Chair Lamb.
Aye.
So the motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, see you guys later.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to we have an application from Blaze Burge for the Flynn Creek Circus for having a tent erected and having performances between August 28th and September 1st, 2020, pending health order due to COVID-19, I would assume. So I'm wondering if staff would like to make a presentation. Juliana Cherry.
Thank you. Juliana Cherry, Planner 3 with Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. It's my pleasure to present Flynn Creek Circus's application to provide performances in the town of Mendocino. This is MHRB 2020-0005, and the event would take place under a tent in Friendship Park, which is near the corner of School Street and Little Lake. When they applied, we were not yet sheltering in place, and the original application proposed something over the 4th of July weekend with the camp that the children enroll in to be the days following up to the event. Then during March and April, May, June, July, we have been sheltering in place. And the applicant has responded to that by revising how they would arrange for the event to take place, provide additional safety not only for the performers and during the performances for the public. And they've also looked at alternative dates this year, for example, using Labor Day weekend instead of the 4th of July weekend. They don't really know whether this year they will be able to have performances with our sheltering in place order, but they would like consideration of their application for more than 1 year. Staff is supporting an application and recommending that the review board consider a 5-year application, in part because of the expense, and also that we're rather fluid right now with scheduling events where the public attends. Staff would like to point out that the review board has previously issued permits for 5-year periods for things like a market, a craft fair in Hyder Field. So there is some previous examples of regular events. The circus has also come to town many times now, and perhaps the review board is more familiar with how they manage the facility during their performances and during the children's camp, the circus camp. So I believe last week the posted online is one public comment, which is actually the applicant's comments. They wanted to provide some additional assurance to the review board how they're during the public, during sheltering in place, how they're responding and assuring public safety. So also staff worked closely with the applicant on condition number 10 to allow some flexibility. The review board could either approve some specific dates for this permit, or they could provide some direction to the director and staff for how alternate dates might be considered. So staff has crafted condition 10 as one option for the review board to consider. Condition 10 reads, the circus tent may be built up and pulled down during the between August 27 and September 2nd, 2020, and between June and July of years 21 through 2025. If in response to public health orders, an event is rescheduled, then the director shall consider a request from the applicant for alternative dates, and on behalf of the review board, note the approved alternative dates by attaching a memo to the MHRB permit 2020-0005. So here I think what staff is thinking is the review board is really approving the tent being assembled in Friendship Park for so many days each year for both the summer camp and then also for the circus performances. What dates the tent is erected, pulled up, or pulled down may fluctuate from year to year, and the director with direction from the review board could consider alternative dates without the applicant having to get a new MHRB permit. If you have questions, I'm delighted to answer them, and I'm available. Thank you.
And if I may just add on to the end of Ms. Cherry's presentation, I was just discussing it here with Director Schultz as well. And so we would recommend that the review board also consider the addition of a condition number 11, just stating that any event shall be conducted in accordance with the current public health order in effect at the time of the event. This is just to ensure that no event moves forward that is not fully in conformance with the health officer's order that may be in effect at that time. So that's just one additional request from staff. And I do see we have the applicant on the line here as well.
That's good advice. So would the applicant like to discuss their project?
Hello, Madam Chair. This is Blaze Burge with Flynn Creek Circus. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think Juliana did an excellent job of explaining our position. Of course, I'm sure you are all aware that we've been holding an annual event in Friendship Park, and we'd like to continue doing so. We are under no, we're not going to be surprised when that is not possible to do this year. But we also had already submitted for our application, and in the past have been granted multiple years, so felt that it made sense to continue with the application to be optimistic. Regardless of our application, we would not be pursuing a children's camp for this year until conditions improve due to the pandemic. We, of course, sincerely hope that conditions are different for next year. yeah, and that's basically it. If we were able to get our approval and the conditions on the ground were much better and the CDC guidelines and county health orders did allow us to do the event, we still have put in place significant changes to our operation to ensure that the public is safe. And we've also planned, if we can move forward, to do a smaller event in general. So I'm available for questions. I think it's pretty straightforward. We're just trying to still host the fundraiser for the community center, but not compromise the health of the public.
Thank you, Blaze. So if you could stay on the line, we're going to ask if there's any public commentary on this.
We have no requests for telecomment on this item, and we also received no comment letters on this item. Thank you.
So, does anyone have questions for Blaze?
I don't have any. I think it's a great proposal, and I'm in favor of condition 10, and I guess now condition 11 also. So I'm fine with the whole thing.
Ian, do you have any comments or questions for Blaze?
Same thing, and I would just, in order to keep them solvent in these crazy times, I don't have a problem giving them a permit for 10 years instead of 5.
I didn't hear that.
So, Blaze, I'd like to ask because it surprised me. In fact, I was on the phone this morning with Julia Acker about, it's come up again, that because at one point we had approved, I guess it was 3 years for your event. What we've done in the past is for the McCallum House, when they were going with their weddings, is that we approved a certain amount of days that their tent could be up. And I'm wondering if for some reason due to the health order or what have you, and you're not able to have your circus on the Labor Day weekend, would you be considering perhaps having it a different time, maybe around Halloween, something like that? And the line of questioning that I'm after is if the board approves a certain amount of days for your circus per year without being as specific, then you won't have to come before us if say the health order is that you can't have it the end of September, but by the end of October, the order's lifted. Would that be something that would benefit you, and also to for us to approve more than 1 year? If you could make some comments on that, Blaze, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, that's obviously that would be ideal for us to have that kind of flexibility, especially under these conditions. And yeah, we have considered, I mean, honestly, I think it's mostly likely that we won't be able to host for Labor Day. The models are already looking pretty unfavorable. And to have the flexibility to say, okay, well, let's try this plan for Halloween or
Christmas
or Christmas, or let's just keep trying, I love it. That would be fantastic. We would be very grateful.
Okay, thank you, Blaze. So since there's no public commentary, then we'll go back to discussion between board members Kapler and Vice Chair Roth. What are your thoughts about this?
Deirdre, I'm not sure I understood your proposal. It seemed to me that condition 10 would allow the director to consider a request for alternative dates. Why do we need anything else?
It doesn't refer to any alternate dates in 2020. So this would allow the circus to have the freedom that the item does not have to come before the MHRB board again. If we can approve that they have a certain amount of dates, say it's 5 days per year, and they can choose the dates.
To me,
And I'm wondering if that would be something.
To me, the second sentence says, if in response to public health orders, an event is rescheduled, then the director shall consider a request from the applicant for alternative dates. I think that covers this year as well as all the way.
But who's the director? Is that?
It's the director of public building and PBS.
But that doesn't, no, what I'm proposing is that we approve that the circus may operate for 5, okay, well, they're requesting for the next 5 years, 2020 to 2025. We've done this before. We've already approved them for, I believe it was 3 years, and now they're asking for 5. And at this point, I'm just saying that through the duration of 2020, that they can choose a different date. So let's say the health order says, no, you can't have it Labor Day weekend, that maybe they want to have something for Halloween weekend, or maybe they want to have something for Christmas week or Hanukkah week, or whatever week that they want to move it to without having to come before us. So
I think the second sentence covers that eventuality.
But it doesn't, that doesn't address the dates in 2020.
Sure it does. It's all inclusive, the way I read it. It's not limited to 2021 to
Vice Chair Roth, how do you read that? To me, that's not specific enough.
I see it as 10 seems to give the flexibility that you're proposing. I mean, if the public health orders an event to be rescheduled, then the director of public, planning and building safety shall consider request from the applicant for an alternative date.
Without having to come before us again?
Yeah. On behalf of the review board.
Okay, so can I ask Blaze? Blaze, does that work for you, that if you do need to move the dates that we're going to approve today, that you can move it to a different date without having to come before us?
Yeah, that
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
And my only distinction is that this seems to be we've had these applications before. It seems to be very routine and administrative. In terms of having Flynn Creek come before us and spend time and money, Flynn Creek's Flynn Creek. They're not going to change their shtick. They have something that works and that people love. I don't see why not giving them 10 years instead of 5. And the only caveat being, my concern is that we are MHRB, and they have to fall underneath, as everyone does, the county health officer. I wouldn't want them to take this as a stick to say to the health officer, well, MHRB approved us, why don't you? But
Which is why Julia Acker and Brent Schultz have advised in the motion that is made that it is contingent on the current guidelines of the health order.
Absolutely. So I really don't have a problem with that, because I know.
Would you like to make a motion, Ian?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve MHRB application 2020-0005 with all the conditions and requirements as put forth, with one amendment, and that the application be between 2021 and 2031 or 2030.
So if I may, that would be a revision to condition of approval number 10 then, that would state the years of 2021 through 2030, if I understood correctly. And then did that motion also include the additional condition as suggested by staff stating that any event shall be conducted in accordance with the current public health order in effect at the time of the event?
Absolutely.
I would like, if I may, for clarifying through the chair, the first year is 2020,
Right.
not 2021, 2020.
Correct.
Okay.
So that would go for 10
Thank
years.
you.
would be
Yes.
2029.
2029.
Right. It would be
Yeah.
2020 to 2030. Right? You wanted to propose 10 years?
Yeah, but I think if we go to 2030, that's actually 11.
Yeah,
So the motion for clarification would be that condition 10 would be for the years 2020 through 2029.
And that's a 10-year application.
Oh, I see. So the first year is covered by the preamble. The circus tent may be built up and pulled down between August 27th and September 2nd, 2020, and between June and July of years 2021 through 2020.
Did we state anything like however
If
they
in
should?
response to the public health orders, an event is rescheduled, then the Director of Planning and Building Services shall consider a request from the applicant for alternative dates and, on behalf of the review board, note the approved alternative dates by attaching a memo to MHRB 2020-0005, if that amendment is acceptable to you.
Accepted.
but then there's also condition 11, right?
Well,
Yes.
that was, yes.
As read
Ian
by
already
staff.
incorporated that.
Yes.
So home, do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Board Member Roth, a second by Board Member Kapler. We'll start with our voice vote here. So Board Member Kapler,
aye.
Board Member Roth,
Aye.
and Chair Lamb.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries with that amendment to condition 10, the addition of condition 11, and with that, the item is approved.
Congratulations, Blaze.
Thank you so much.
Continue
Stay
to-
safe.
Okay, thank you.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we're moving on to item number MHRB 2020-0006. The applicant is Andrea Shepherd and her representative is Schlosser Newberger Architects at the address 44901 Pine Street. Wondering if staff, Juliana Cherry, would like to make a presentation.
Thank you very much. This project is located at 44901 Pine Street. It is right across the street from the community center. It's an existing two-story single-family home, and it is a Category 1 historic resource. The applicant has been working on some interior changes. It's a new property owner, and they're making the home what they'd like for themselves. And the request is to remove an existing wood entry door, transom, and trim, reframe the door opening from a 2 3/4 foot wide to a 3 foot wide by 7.5 foot tall opening, install a new custom wood 4-panel door, infill the transom with solid wall section, install the wood trim and paint to match existing. Remove the existing wood window on the first floor south elevation. This is a kitchen window, and the existing wall section. Install a new custom wood window to match the existing, but aligning with the other window above on the second floor. And infill the wall section, patch back the wood siding to match the existing, and paint to match. I just recently, I believe early last week, received a clarification from the applicant regarding color and prepared a memo with some color samples attached. The house currently is the color green with a white trim, and the applicant is requesting to paint the base color of the home a Benjamin Moore Sandy Hook Gray, which is one from the historic collection. So the base of the house would be a color from the historic collection. And the trim color would also be from the historic collection. The trim color would be Clinton brown. So the house, the proposed colors are really light color brown with a dark brown trim. I believe that is all of staff's presentation. Let me just quickly look at the conditions. So with the change in the colors, staff is recommending some alteration to condition 8. The new condition 8 would read, exterior base color shall be Sandy Hook gray, a Benjamin Moore Historical Collection color HC 108 or similar. Exterior trim color shall be Clinton brown, a Benjamin Moore Historical Collection color HC 67 or similar. Condition 9 begins with all new or replaced exterior doors and window frames shall be made from wood. And condition 7 talks about outdoor lighting shall be shielded. If you have questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, is the applicant available for a presentation, Julie?
Yes, we do have the applicant or their agent, excuse me, available, and our staff is just going to pull them over into the meeting here. And then we'll be hearing from the architect for this project, Todd Newberger. So, Mr. Newberger, I see you're on the line here. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Please state your name for the record.
Todd Newberger, partner, Schlosser Newberger Architects. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, we all hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So just the description is accurate, and you've got the set of plans illustrating the remodel that we're discussing. There is a clarification on the painting colors. The trim will actually remain the off-white color that it is currently, but the door and the window jambs will be painted the Clinton brown.
Okay.
So that's just a
that's kind of a big clarification. Thank you.
Yes, it is. It's
I was going to ask that, right?
Okay. Sorry for that. There are also a couple of other items that we've submitted and illustrated that were not described in the written description that we just heard. On existing pump house and on the what we're proposing is that we change the roof style on that pump house from a shed to a gable. We'll be reducing the overall height of that roof by 1 foot, and it will match the character of the development to our liking a little bit better. We're also proposing some internal fencing, redwood fencing, unpainted and unstained, that will enclose the existing water holding tanks. And we will be relocating an existing propane tank from adjacent the pump house, and we'll be surrounding that with a wooden fence as well. And there's one last item which we've added and is illustrated on the A3.1 sheet. We've got 3 balconies, one at the main entry door, one at the kitchen side entry door, and one in the upstairs balcony that we would like to add copper fascia gutters and copper downspouts. That completes our request, and I'm certainly available. I do want to point out that the printed picture of Sandy Hook gray, while it does have some green in it, the picture is significantly greener than the actual color sample. The sample is more on the gray line than the green. And the inclusion of the Clinton brown will also bring out that.
Could you verify again, what was the Clinton brown? It was the door and anything else?
It's the door and the window jambs.
Window jams.
So the frames of the window.
I see. Or I think Juliana Cherry has a different word for that. Mullins, is that correct? Or
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So if you could just hang on, Todd,
Sure.
we'll get back to you in a bit. So Julia Acker, do we have anyone at the ready for a telecomment or any comments?
We have no requests for telecomment on this item, and then the only comment we had, written comment, was from the architect, which I believe we just heard those verbally. So no comments at this time.
So I'd like to ask the board, does the board have any questions for the applicant, Mr. Kapler or Mr. Roth?
No,
Home?
I didn't
No
have.
questions, okay.
Right.
Ian Roth, I don't see him, okay.
It's gone.
Excuse me, Chair Lamb. It looks like we may have just lost board member Roth just
Kind of
momentarily.
looks that way, so we
So,
can't really move
I would-
forward until he comes back.
I would suggest let's just take a 5-minute recess here.
Thank you.
And that way we can allow him to get connected again, and then we'll
I appreciate
continue on with
that.
this item. Okay,
Perfect.
excellent. So
Okay, so everyone just take 5 minutes. Thank you so much. We'll see you at 4:15.
thank you.
Thank you.
Concluded with the applicant's comment. We discussed that there was no telecomment and the item was back in front of the board.
The last dialogue that was there, last 30 seconds, what was that about? Because I totally lost you guys.
Okay, the applicant was explaining that the paint choice colors were that the door and the mullions or window panes are going to be the Clinton brown, and that the Sandy Hook gray appears, I don't know if you were able to print out the colors,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
it appears more gray than this, and then this would be the door and the jambs, and then the outside of the frames would be white. So,
Okay. Thank you.
and then he said that he was going to be fencing in the propane tank. Mr. Newberger, would you like to reiterate what was also going to be fenced in?
Sure. Sure. The existing water storage tanks will have an 8-foot redwood fence shielding them from the public view, and then that will step down to a 4-foot, I think maybe a 42-inch tall fence around the propane tank, and that'll be lineal, and
Thank
that's
you.
shown on your site plan. And there's a an exterior elevation sheet A3.3 also, which illustrates that fencing.
If I may, through the chair, perhaps we could ask the architect to suggest a revision to condition 8 so that we properly represent the colors.
Yes, please.
I think that's a good
Yes,
idea.
please. That
Thank you,
would be
Juliana.
very helpful.
So I don't know if you heard Vice Chair Roth, but Home Kapler did not have any questions for the applicant. Do you have any further questions for the applicant?
I'm good. This seems very straightforward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll remand back to the board. Board discussion amongst the board members. Board members Kapler and Vice Chair Roth. Do we have any discussion between the board?
Yeah, well, number one, I had a question about the paint, but now that we're talking about three paint colors, obviously it is a subject to our review and.
Correct.
And
The
so.
same as the Dominies, correct.
Right, so, you know, if we modify condition 8 to indicate the third color, whatever it is, then we're fine on that as far as I'm concerned. With regard to the other changes, are those up for our approval, or are they just things that are really don't need our?
They are up for our approval. The fence is 8 feet tall. That's going to be fencing around the tank. Anything that's 6 feet or over requires the MHRB board approval.
What about the gutters and downspouts?
The copper gutters and downspouts, I don't have any problem with copper. If they want to go the extra mile, I know that's expensive. I've had clients that have done that. So, and they're attractive in my mind. I don't know how Vice Chair Roth feels about copper gutters.
My only comment is, do we have to approve that?
Yes, we do.
We do? Okay. And then something to do with the pump house too, right?
He was they were gonna fence in the pump house.
Okay. Also fencing.
May I interject? Todd Newberger
Yes,
here.
please do.
The work on the pump house is, it's an existing shed roof, and we're actually going to take that roof off and turn it into a gable roof. So a pitch on each
Oh,
side.
that's right.
And that's shown on drawing sheet A3.2. It'll be lowering the overall height of that structure, and it'll be bringing it into character with the surroundings.
Okay.
Vice Chair Roth, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I think it's very tasteful. And as someone, as the chair asked, what is vice chair's opinion about copper? I just redid the roof. And I added the copper, and it looks really nice. It's not that much more expensive, and it's going to weather. I think the copper that's in there is going to outlive the roof itself. So I applaud that decision, and think it's going to look great.
Would either Board Member Kapler or Vice Chair Roth like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve MHRB permit request 2020-0006, subject to the revised standard conditions set out in attachment C of the staff report, and subject to the addition of, I don't know what the paint color was, but a third paint color to condition 8, and also a new roof for the pump house, fencing for the tanks, and copper gutters and downspouts.
I'll second that motion.
Can you clarify on the paint color that the body of the house will be Sandy Hook gray, and the window panes will be Clinton brown, and the window sills will be from the off-white collection? Would that be something that you could add in, Mr. Kapler?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I hope somebody took note of that.
I think Juliana Cherry is on it. Is that correct, Juliana? Is there any questions from you?
It would be great to capture the wording that Todd would suggest for condition 8. That would be the clearest way to know what it should say.
Well, I guess it's going to say that the exterior base color shall be Sandy Hook gray, right? And then the exterior trim color shall be.
Well, I believe he said it was the door and the mullions, the paint, the window frames. Todd, do you want to clarify that, please?
Sure. Yes. So the doors, the exterior doors and the window frames will be the Clinton brown, and the trim will be from the off-white collection, Benjamin Moore, pre-approved.
Correct.
Historical.
But because you have 3 colors, and then the body will be the Sandy Hook gray, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Is that clear, Mr. Kapler?
Yeah, that's clear. So.
Okay.
If I may, through the chair, what color from the off-white collection would the trim be?
He can choose any color from the off-white collection.
Well, he is proposing 3 colors, and so in those instances, we do want to have it specified what the third color is.
I'd be pleased to bring in the selection to the planning board with a color chip at.
I think that's fine. We can make. I'm fine with allowing the staff to further approve the white. He's basically said it was the same white that it was. Is that correct, Mr. Newberger, or somewhere close to it?
Very, very similar.
Yeah. So I think we can move forward on this, on taking a vote on this, rather than holding the project up to allow the applicant to have to go back and review all the colors and be specific about one certain white. I think anywhere in the off-white collection should be able to be approved, and we can allow staff to further approve the exact naming choice of the color. Does that work for board members Kapler and Vice Chair Roth?
Works for me.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Yeah, and if board member Kapler accepts the changes, I will accept the changes for the second.
Okay, so we have a first, we have a second. Julia Acker, would you like to call for a vote, please?
Yes, of course. So that was a motion by board member Kapler, a second by board member Roth, with some modifications to condition of approval number 8 in terms of the language. And so starting with board member Roth.
Aye.
and Board Member Kapler,
Aye.
and Chair Lamb.
Aye.
Thank you. So the motion carries unanimously. The project is approved. Thank you.
Congratulations, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Julia.
Appreciate
Thank you for your
service.
time as well.
Julia? Julia?
Yes. Yes.
The motion included the pump house and the fencing and the gutters and downspouts, right?
Yes. Yes. My apologies. As the motion was read into the record, my apologies.
Okay, great.
So we're going to move on to MHRB 2020-0007. The applicant is Ileana Ioneda, and her architect is Kelly Grimes. Would staff like to make a presentation on this? Juliana Cherry, please.
Thank you, Juliana Cherry, Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. This is application MHRB 2020-0005. The request is to refurbish the garage exterior, including the garage doors, windows, siding, and extending an overhang. This property is located at 45105 Capella Street and the site of the Jerome House, a Category 1 historic resource. The applicant's state covered in the staff report on pages 1 and 2, some parts of the proposed project are exempt from MHRB permit. The exemptions are described on staff report page 2. For example, the applicant is proposing to replace all rotten material, both framing and finish, with like material. That kind of work, repairing and replacing one material with something of the same material, is exempt from MHRB permits. The application does not propose exterior lamps, but they may wish to install them at a later date. Therefore, staff is recommending condition 7, which we've seen quite often today, establishing that all exterior lamps shall be shielded and reflected downward. The application statement 6 proposes to re-roof the entire garage with comp shingles to match the residence and studio on site. This may be exempt. The residence and studio roof colors appear to be a dark brown, and the garage roof appears to be a gray. We recommend condition 8 to allow the residence, studio, and garage roof color to be dark brown, and then all the structures would have a roof of the same color. The applicant statement 1 proposes to raise and install a concrete slab and foundation under the garage. This would be exempt because the change in the garage height would be limited to 6 inches, as shown on sheet A2. I also would like to note that the color of the exterior garage is not specified. It's unclear whether the existing color would be retained or an alternative color painted. Staff recommends condition 9 to allow the property owner to apply a clear stain to retain the unpainted wood appearance of the existing garage. Also, condition 11 is recommended. The horizontal awning windows, sliding windows, and windows with horizontally oriented panes are not appropriate. That's how the condition is recommended to read. Windows and doors shall have a vertical appearance. The 2 existing south-facing garage windows may remain and shall retain the existing height and width dimension. The applicant is asking to change the 2 horizontally oriented windows to 3 horizontally oriented windows. Staff looked at the guidelines and the standards, which have a vertical emphasis on fenestration for structures, and does not recommend supporting that type of windows on the garage. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
And we do have the agent available for this item as well. And Chair Lamb, I see that you are muted right now, so I apologize. So we do have the agent on the line at this time. We do have Kelly Grimes available, and I see Kelly has been brought into the meeting here. So Kelly, if you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for looking at this project. I do have one point that I'd like to bring up, is that about the horizontal windows. I think that staff has misinterpreted what the guidelines state. You know, they talk about the scale and proportion, they talk about vertical emphasis, they talk about the structures of the historic district are definitely vertical in appearance. They talk about the height and width and general proportions of a building shall conform with other buildings in the surrounding neighborhood. Then she does quote the part about the windows are typically tall, double hung wood frame windows. But it says right above that, windows and doors, the proportions and relationship between windows and doors and of each to the structure as a whole shall be compatible with the architectural style and character of landmark structures and with surrounding structures within the historic district. And we're not proposing these horizontal windows on the existing house, which is a 2-story house, which has many double hung windows, which are vertically oriented, obviously. But if you do note on those old pages that they include in the packet, it shows the original front porch of the house. It's, you know, one of the attachments is an old photo that shows that the front porch has been enclosed, made into a room, a little ante room there in front of the door. And then there are also some very horizontally oriented windows that have actually been put into a Category 1 house. So, you know, I think we're rebuilding the garage. I think there are already 2 horizontally oriented windows, or basically they're square windows. And we're simply asking to add a third. You know, we're redoing the whole garage. We're bringing it back from basically falling into the ground. I think everything that we are proposing is in character with the town. I did notice on my drawings that I mislabeled the Dutch door and the patio door. They should be the opposite. That's pretty self-explanatory. And that's really all I have. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly Grimes. So can we ask if there's any telecomments or correspondence regarding this project, Julia Hacker?
Yes, no telecomment has been received, although there was one item of public comment that came from Kathleen and Rod Cameron.
Correct. Did board members have a chance to read that?
They both support the project.
It was quite favorable.
Thank you.
Okay, so does the board have questions for the applicant? Mr. Kapler or Vice Chair Roth?
I don't.
No, pretty straightforward.
Okay, so I do have a question. Kelly, I'd like to address what, a couple of what the staff recommendations are as far as the color of the exterior has not been designated. And I'm wondering if staff is recommending a clear stain if these are going to be shingled. I'm wondering if that's from Mr. Grimes, if that's where if that's acceptable, if that's what you would like to propose. That I'd like to hear what you'd like to propose as far as the exterior color of the building.
Thank you. My understanding is that we could do 2 colors that are in the approved selection of colors, or we could just leave it just raw wood, or we could put clear stain on it as Juliana Cherry is recommending. Either of those 3 options would be available to us, right, without coming back to the review board?
That is correct.
Okay, so the clear stain is a fine. I mean, right now we're just proposing
I'd say if you wanted to choose from the approved color collection, which is anything from the off-white Benjamin Moore the off-white collection, Benjamin Moore off-white collection for the body, any trim from the Benjamin Moore historical, and then we could add that you will have as an option to paint the shingles with a clear stain if that works for the other board members.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. Do either of you have a problem with that? Mr. Roth or Mr. Kapler?
I don't know. Not at all.
Okay.
I'm okay with the clear stained wood. What are we going to be painting here?
Well, right now the plan is to do it all clear stain, but you know, I think that eventually probably the trim around the windows and the door might be highlighted with a off-white or something to that effect. But basically, this is supposed to look like an outbuilding. You know, it's not supposed to be in keeping with the main residence.
So do we have to change condition 9, or, I mean, I'm okay with it the way it's.
Yeah, condition 9 is fine with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question regarding the windows. On the page A5, on the top, is that those renderings of the existing building as it is now?
Yeah, on A2.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
top ones.
Those are the existing west.
Okay,
south,
so
yeah.
basically it's already a horizontal window. All you're really asking is to make it a little bit
Well,
more
yeah,
symmetrical.
there are two horizontal or two square windows there, you know,
Right.
and we're adding
So
one
you're
more.
talking about adding one to make it a little more symmetrical.
Yes.
Okay, and then extending the overhang. Okay, thank you. And then
And if I may add, we are replacing the double hung wood window, and we're trying to keep the kind of, it's got a real eclectic nature right now,
mhm,
and we're trying to keep that, you know, with some
yes, I
updated
understand.
materials and to preserve the building.
Right, okay. Thank
So
you.
if we agree to the 3.
So let's come back to the board. So under board discussion, the public commentary is closed. So board member Kapler, I'd like to recognize you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I like the design. I like the whole looks of this, and I like the 3 windows. So if we approve the 3rd window, does that mean that condition 11 is eliminated? I don't know that it's necessary.
Yes, conditional and
Let me see what you're talking about, condition 11.
If I may,
That
Julia,
was just, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Julia.
I was just going to say that I believe there's 2 items included in there, including the door as well. It's in that second part of the sentence. So I believe we do have Planner Cherry on the line as well. And I'm unsure if that causes any concern for her related to the project at all on condition 11, any sort of either deletion or any revisions to that.
I had anticipated that the review board would not be supportive of the 3 windows. If they are, I would recommend just deleting condition 11 in its entirety.
Thank you.
So we're ready
Back
to make
to
a motion?
discussion from the board. Do we have any other discussion that we would like to do between Vice Chair Roth and Mr. Kapler, Board Member Kapler?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I think it's a nice design. I appreciate the additional light into the garage. I'm not bothered with the 3rd horizontal because I think that the door and the double hung balance it out. So I'm okay with this.
I agree. I think it's a very nice design. I appreciate it when residents of Mendocino come forward with improving the buildings. I was walking by it. I've walked by pretty much all of these applications that we have on the table today, and I feel like it's going to be a very nice change for the neighborhood. So do we have someone that would like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve MHRB permit request 2020-0007, subject to standard conditions 1 through 10 set out in the staff report.
And what about number 11? Oh yeah, 1 through 10. Okay, that takes care of it. Thank you.
Second
Do we
that
have a
motion.
second?
Second that motion.
Thank you.
Ms. Acker, would you like to, or I guess it's Krog, huh? Mrs. Krog.
Okay, I respond to both.
Julia, would you like to
problem.
call for a vote, please?
So Board Member Roth,
Aye.
Board Member Kapler,
Aye.
and Chair Lamb.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. So that's an approval of the project with the deletion of condition 11. So just approving it with conditions 1 through 10. Thank you.
Thank you all
Congratulations,
very
Mr.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item that we have is item number MHRB 2020-0008. It's a application between the California State Department of Parks and Recreations. Their agent is architect Deborah Lennox. I'd like to know if staff has a presentation that they would like to present. Juliana Cherry.
Thank you. This is MHRB 2020-0008, located at 45035 Main Street in Mendocino. It's affiliated with, it is a public restroom facility in the state parks in the Headlands area next to the board house. The applicant came to the review board a couple of years ago with this application, and after a series of meetings, the review board did approve this application. Subsequently, the state did not proceed with working on the project, and the MHRB permit expired. So they're coming forward with virtually the same application the review board previously approved and requesting again approval for the project. The conditions are very similar to what was approved. Condition 9 discusses the exterior doors, and this is because the state of California considers the exterior doors, if they were made from wood, there would be a considerable maintenance, and they would like the review board to consider doors that are not made from wood for this project. And I'll let the applicant's representative speak to that. So condition 9 clarifies all new and replaced exterior doors and window frames shall be made from wood. And that's that concludes staff's presentation. If you have questions, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. So with the applicant, is the applicant available for answering some questions?
We have the agent on the line here. We have Deborah Lennox on the line. So Deborah, we've brought you over. So go ahead and unmute yourself and just state your name for the record and begin your comments.
Hi, this is Deborah Lennox, and I am here with, I have Terry Bertels from California State Parks on speakerphone. Which speakerphone? Say hi, Terry. Oh, I don't know if you can hear him. There we go. So anyway, yeah, so thank you, Juliana. And I wish we weren't back here because we've already done this once, but in the process of doing the construction drawings, I've come across a couple of little things that I thought I'd share, as well as the request from State Parks to have the doors not be made of wood because of the maintenance and because of the high usage. They would really like a fiberglass option, which Geldwin actually makes a fiberglass option with the same configuration in the same mahogany color. So they believe that it wouldn't be perceived as not being wood. It would look like wood. And I said I would see what you guys thought. So there's that. The second little item is in the process of developing the mechanical ventilation system, which that restroom really needs. We need makeup air. And so we've propose putting some small vents along the east and west elevations, which is preferable. I have them drawn in the door panel also, but State Parks feels like that's a vandalism option, so they prefer having these small wooden vents painted to match the existing siding, so they would be unobtrusive. And that's additional to what our previous submittal was. And then the third thing that's kind of come up is that as now we have the walkway into the universal stalls along the building, we'd like to have gutters instead of have the water come down on the pedestrians. And so I've looked at various gutters and would like to have a powder coated aluminum with the same color as the rest of the building also. And everything is a Benjamin Moore, right? Benjamin Moore white, where'd it go? Timid white. So those are the changes, but otherwise everything else is the same as our original proposal. Is there anything you'd like to add, Terry?
No, I think you covered it very well, Deborah.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you, Deborah. So we're going to ask Julia, do we have anyone standing by for public comment or telecommentary? Or
We have no requests for telecomment for this item, and no public comments were received either. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will go back to the board. Board members Kapler and Vice Chair Roth, do you have any questions for the applicant regarding this application?
No.
Mr. Roth, you are muted.
I'm sorry, thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
My only question is, I understand the whole concept of the fiberglass door. I'm the newest member on the board. I don't want to try to understand the maintenance issue. I want my other board members to weigh in about their feelings about the fiberglass door that looks like wood.
Thank you. Board member Kapler, what is your thoughts on the door?
Oh, it's easy. It's got to be wood. I don't see how we can make an exception for the state of California when we're requiring everybody else to have wood. Are we not talking about the same thing here? Isn't this condition 9 that we're talking about?
Yes, we are. That's correct.
Yeah, so I'm definitely in favor of condition 9 and requiring that all of the doors and windows be made from wood.
Thank you. Chair?
I think I think we've already approved this project. I think for them to make this change is not in character with the town and might set a precedence. If we do agree that they can have a fiberglass door, then the next person down the line is going to say, but you just approved a fiberglass door. Why can't I have a fiberglass door? And I'm not prepared at this point to set that precedence. So I agree with Mr. Kapler on requiring the project to move forward as we had approved this plan prior with the wooden door. So
The applicants will remove the request for the fiberglass because we're prepared to go either way. So we'll just take the fiberglass out.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a question from you on the rain gutters to be aluminum, and you said I think I heard you say powder coated, and I just wanted some clarification on that because it kind of went by a little bit quickly there.
Yeah, it's a baked enamel surface on it's a metal gutter, and then you can make it a color, and it's recommended to make the colors match the fascia boards, so it'll be the same color as everything else. But I think we do need gutters on this project.
Yeah. Gutters are a good idea in this area. So, well, thank you very much. Okay, so discussion from board, board member Kapler and Vice Chair Roth. Is there any discussion between us on any changes that you would like to see on this application?
No, I'm happy with it, the way it's set out and with the conditions that are set out in the staff report.
Vice Chair Roth?
And thank you both for thank you both for clarifying what my concerns were. And Ms. Lennox, thank you for affirming that they will withdraw the request for the fiberglass door. So I'll make a motion to approve MHRB application 2020-008 with the conditions as
I lost that, but
I lost you, Ian. You're gonna have to do that again. I'm sorry. Oh, he's frozen. He's frozen in space. Okay, so we have to wait for Ian to come back on board here. Vice Chair Roth, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, if you could restate your motion,
I'm here.
that would be appreciated because the computer froze.
I'm sorry, I was in outer space. I'll move to approve application MHRB 2020-0008 with the conditions as set forth. And I think we had an addition of the gutters that were going to be powder coated and added to match the fascia board.
Okay.
And do you want to
clear?
mention the item with the door? Mr. Vice Chair Roth, that they were going to delete the
number 9. Condition number 9.
Yeah, it's covered.
Julia, is there a way that we can say that the applicant has withdrawn their request for changing out the door?
Yes, we can make that note as part of the minutes here. And then also I just note for the benefit of the review board that condition 9 does require that all window frames and doors be made of wood. So we've captured it there as well to ensure we have it.
Thank you.
So that was a motion by board member Roth to approve the project MHRB 2020-0008, subject to the conditions as contained within the staff report with the additional comments regarding the gutters and downspouts.
I think we need a second on this. Mr. Kapler, would you like to second that?
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
So
thank you.
board
Call
member,
for vote, please.
all right, board member Kapler,
Aye.
board member Roth. I'm sorry, board member Roth, you cut out.
Aye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
okay,
And Chair Sam.
Aye.
Thank you. So the motion carries unanimously. With that, the project is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we, Mr. Board Member Roth, are you having difficulties? Okay. Thank you, Deborah. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe, Julia, that we need to wait for Vice Chair Roth to be able to come back on board before we can continue the meeting.
Yes, I would agree with that. So I would say we could all just wait here on the line. I'm sure he'll be reconnecting.
That would be a better idea because we're,
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll just hold here on the line, allow him a few minutes here to reconnect. And it does appear we've got an icon now for board
Okay.
member.
Yes, we do.
Ian, do we have you on the line?
I'm back.
I'm
I'm sorry, I
back.
got
I'm
kicked
here.
off my internet.
No
There we go.
problem.
Okay. All right. So,
Wow.
okay. So now that we've all reconvened, We can continue on. We have agenda item number 11A, which is matters from board, a follow-up distribution of the final letter to the Board of Supervisors on the MHRB membership. And I'd like to invite the board to comment. So is this the letter that was distributed? I don't know that I saw this.
So if I may, I believe in maybe the wording here on the agenda is not quite appropriate, but Chair Lamb, that you would ask to add an item under matters from board for discussion following up on the request made to the Board of Supervisors about expanding the MHRB membership.
At one point, we had discussed sending a letter to the Board of Supervisors about expanding the area in which board members can be a member of. And I don't know that we ever actually made that final letter, Julia. So so we'll just move on, and I'll ask the board if you have any additional items that you would like to discuss.
Actually, I would like to discuss this item.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to be, I got to watch my language, a you-know-what stirrer. When we approached this letter, we had a board of 4, and we had split 2-2 on a vote. And the letter has not been sent, and now we're a board of 3. And before we send the letter, I have proposed that we have business owners as part of the mix. And that was, we tied 2-2 and it didn't go forward. With all due respect, I would like to revisit that because we're in a drought of potential board members. We're soon to become 2 instead of 3. And I think that business owners have a huge stake in what goes on in this town and how it looks. And I would propose, I'm getting an evil look from my chair.
Well, it's already been tried. I'll tell you that right now. It's already been tried and a number of times over the years. So perhaps maybe to visit the history of it before that. I do know that there's at least one board member that will be joining fairly soon. That's the hope. And maybe 2. So, and they are residents of the community. So I think the issue became that if the board became, say, top heavy of 3-2 with business owners, that the possibility of pushing things through on a financial level was the concern, because the board really never should take under account a financial cost of a project. That's not what the board is for. And it's a slippery slope. It could become very easily that's what becomes of it. And at this point, I think the board was formed back in the 70s, which was before your time, but I was in high school here when someone named R.O. Peterson, who owned Jack in the Box, bought the Mendocino Hotel and proceeded to level a number of historic buildings behind the Mendocino Hotel and put up the new units. And right about then, that's when the citizens of Mendocino decided that review board was in order to be formed, because of course the guy with Jack in the Box had all the money in the world. And so to look at a project based on how much money they're going to spend is not in keeping with what the values are of the Mendocino Historical Review Board. So I think it's premature to agendize it. Can we perhaps maybe agendize it for discussion for next month?
I would be happy to put it on an agenda for a future meeting if you'd like, as a discussion topic.
Thank you.
And I don't have a problem with that. And Chair, I totally respect the past. I get it. I understand. But as we've designated that we could have one seat for someone who may not be a resident of the town of Mendocino or village, but of the county, who is someone who has historical reference and value for one seat? Maybe we could offer up one seat for a business owner. And I look at it as more not someone trying to railroad and trying to put together their profitability based upon cost analysis and trying to bulldoze the community. I look at it more as business owners have a value in maintaining the existing structures and ambiance the way it is. And I guess maybe I'm too much of a glass half full, and I do understand your concern, but if we were to limit it but offer one seat to a business owner, we might be able to get more participation. And I look forward to have or 2 new members, but that still makes us, if we want to get to 2, we're still only 4.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We'll add this as an agenda item and then we can discuss
Lose
it
me again.
further. Thank you, Julia. Okay, so are there any
Thank
other matters that the board would like to discuss?
No.
No. Okay, so item number 12A was consolidated with item 10A for Domini. That was the solar. That was a matter from staff. So item number 12B, matters from staff. The Board of Supervisors, what, I'm sorry. Yes, Home.
Yeah, on 12A, I thought where we had left this is that Ian was going to establish a subcommittee to look into the issue of solar. And I think it's as a result of the pandemic situation. I don't think anything ever happened there. Maybe.
Well, I think it was more than that. I think after I was in touch with Matthew Kadowski of County Council, it turned out to be quite a legal position that I don't know that we can make a subcommittee, and it's worth anyone's time to even do so if legally we don't really have a say. It seems to me that that's an awful waste of time to build a subcommittee on a solar committee if we don't even know if that's going to be able to be withheld by the Historical Review Board. So according to County Council, it will not. So that's what the position that we're at. So correct me if I'm not, if I'm wrong, Vice Chair Roth.
No, you're spot on. I think we just it's brought up a good point, and I think we should devote some time to this. At this point, I don't know. There's not a whole lot we can do, but and I'm up to my alligators. I'm at capacity right now, so I say we let's put this on another agenda when we actually have some time to discuss it further. Maybe get Matt back and talk about what we really can do and can't do.
Okay, so at this point, that subcommittee has been canceled. Can we safely say that?
For now.
So what I will do is I will work with Deputy County Council Matthew Kadrowski and determine a good meeting date that works for him to maybe have more of like a workshop question and answer sort of session, something like that on solar.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
That'd
Thank
be
you.
appreciated. Okay, so item number 12B, matters from staff regarding the MHRB permit application fees for commercial signs. So if Julia would like to address that. Or
Thank
Juliana.
you. Yeah, so at the Board of Supervisors meeting on April 20th of this year, they approved with staff's recommendation a reduced fee for either a sign copy change or a single sign for a new business. So this allows for a much more reduced fee, and now I was trying to pull it up. I believe it's $295
$295 now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, and that would allow for businesses that are just, you know, like a single business coming into the town to have a much lower barrier to entry in terms of starting their business within the town. So the board was supportive of that, the Board of Supervisors, that is. So that went into effect on July 1st of this month. And so that's the new exciting, we have a new fee, a reduced sign fee. So that's really it. I'm available for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so matters from staff. I'd like to ask staff if they'd like to give an update on the status of MHRB 2016-0018, the appeal to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. So Julia Acker-Krog, Chief Planner, and I was the project planner for this item. So this MHRB permit was approved by your board on February 3rd of 2020. And it was appealed by the applicant or owner to the Board of Supervisors. And that just went to hearing last week, July 14th. It went to hearing with the Board of Supervisors, where the Board of Supervisors upheld the decision of the review board and denied the request for the appeal. So your approval of February 3rd, 2020 still stands and is the approved permit. And that concludes my presentation on that.
I'd just like to add, if anyone does want to watch a copy of it, then they are able to do so. As with this meeting, it's on YouTube. And if you put in the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors, I will say they had a number of items on the calendar that day. So if you do want to watch just that item, I would take the bar at the bottom and move it all the way to the middle, because they addressed it right after lunch. So.
And I would also just like to note that once the board takes a little bit more time with that video, they actually end up appending the video, so it's tabbed at each individual item. So if you wait a little bit of time, then you can go to their meeting agenda page, click on the item, it'll take you straight to where that item started.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
And in the meantime, Mr. Maxwell is still selling the lot, right?
Yes, he is.
Well, he is now again, but that's not for us to discuss. Okay, so all right. So thank you very much for that update, Julia. We are now on item number 12D, matters from staff. Conference with property owner regarding roof mounted solar array. Oh, that one we already conferred with Dominique.
Oh, this is a different one.
Oh, it's a different one. Okay, so staff, would you like to address, would that be Juliana Cherry or Julia Acker-Krog that would be discussing this particular item?
And I would like to defer to Juliana Cherry on this item. Thank you.
Julia. Right, so staff has been discussing when a project up for installing solar in the town of Mendocino comes forward, and that's the sole aspect of the project. They aren't proposing anything else that would require an MHRB permit. How should we bring this forward to the review board so that during the building permit review, the property owner can meet and confer with the review board? And after talking with my colleagues, we are suggesting that it come to the board under matters from staff. So here on Ford Street, 10900 Ford Street, the property owner is wanting to install solar, and Mendocino Solar has applied for a building permit, and we put it on the agenda under matters from staff so that Mendocino Solar can meet and confer with the review board about this proposal. I'm hopeful that Bruce Erickson can share the design with you during this meeting by sharing those images, renderings digitally. But I will let him explain the scope of the project and allow you, the review board and Mendocino Solar, to confer on this project.
Thank you. So to clarify, you're bringing this forward to alert us that at some point we'll be conferring with this property owner, or?
Today. The object of having this under matters from staff is so that the building permit applicant can meet with you and confer, hear your comments on installing solar at 10900 Ford Street today.
Okay.
the problem is we have no idea.
Right,
No,
so
where
hopefully,
this-
I'm hoping that Bruce Erickson will have some renderings that he can show you during the meeting.
So is he going to be making an application for this, or
He has
what you're saying is
Yeah,
he doesn't
he
need to?
he doesn't need an MHRB permit, he needs a building permit, and before we will issue the building permit, it is strongly recommended that he meet and confer with the review board to hear your comments on installing solar. With that, I'd like
That's
to.
agreeable to me. I don't know. How does Vice Chair Roth and Board Member Kapler feel about that?
I'm not sure that it's right that he doesn't need a permit from us, because I think we do have a review function here. And we, as my understanding is, I don't think we can deny the solar installations, but I think we can exercise review and we can confer with the applicants to try to resolve any issues. So it seems to me that somehow there should be a formal process for us to look at this.
If I may clarify, an MHRB permit will not be issued. So asking a property owner to apply for a permit for the review board to consider and act upon isn't really possible. So that's why they're not applying for an MHRB permit. They're not going to be requesting an MHRB permit. They're only required to obtain a building permit and to meet and confer with you.
So in conjunction with Board Member Kapler's feelings, I understand exactly where he's coming from. We had no opportunity to prepare for this, to visit the site, to see any drawings, to see what the capacity is, and to try to make a decision on the fly, especially in a Zoom meeting, as opposed to seeing something in front of us is less than appropriate. And even though they may not need a permit or approval from us, I agree that this whole concept, maybe I should have started the subcommittee right when the pandemic started, but I have a little bit of, my bandwidth is not quite at that capacity. I would respectfully request that we have the same discussion, and maybe it's not an action item, or maybe it is. Actually, I think it should be, because we can, and again, this is when we need to have a time with our Deputy County Counsel, Matthew, to find out what our full range of opportunities are to review something, but at least to have the opportunity to visit the site, look at what's proposed in writing, and consider what's going on. To try to make that on the fly is not what is standard, usual, or appropriate.
So if I may, I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Juliana, but I believe that what you are asking is if the applicant for solar panels to planning can make some artist renderings, and then we can do a special meeting. Is that correct? Between the board members, like have it noticed? Is that, or would it be for next month that we would look at renderings?
Now, I believe Bruce Erickson has already prepared renderings, and once the conference begins between you and Bruce, once we've answered the questions that you have about.
Okay, so if we do agree to a conference, then it would have to be noticed, correct?
It is on the agenda for today's meeting. It wasn't.
But I mean, the conference is on, but the conference is going to happen at a later date. So we would have to pick a date that we could all be available, and then book the conference and then notice it. Is that because, you know, for the Brown Act, we don't want to be teleconferencing and discussing things behind the public's back, you know.
So what I'm hearing from the review board today is that this item, you don't have enough information in front of you for today's meeting to have the conference with the property owner today at this meeting.
And
But
we have no information in front of us.
And into saying if there was an address and notification of neighbors, then they could weigh in as a public process. I had no idea what this item was until just now.
Right. Well, we
And-
do have the applicant on standby is what we've been informed that
Well,
he's
I
ready to
understand that. but-
telecommute, but we don't have any information on this. Exactly.
And the address has not been noticed, nor have the neighbors. So I don't feel comfortable doing a hearing on this item, even preliminarily, without proper noticing.
So I think we could work with Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kodrowski in the County Counsel's office to establish a more formalized process for this. I do want to just address about the public comment, since no MHRB or the public notice, since no MHRB permit would be required, there is no notice to adjacent property owners as a result of a building permit application. It would solely just be on the posted agenda at that time. But so what I'm hearing from the board here is that you do not have the information sufficient to discuss this item today, would like to see it on a future agenda with all the materials being provided for that future agenda so you can review it before the meeting.
Absolutely.
That's agreeable. Thank you.
I would like to suggest that we consider continuing this to the August 3rd meeting and have a meeting just for this one item as a continued matter.
I think
That
that's a
way
good
the
idea.
applicant
Thank
doesn't
you.
have to wait until September to complete their building permit process.
I agree with that. That's fine with me. Is that fine with the board member Kapler and Vice Chair Roth?
Yes, please. And I don't
Okay,
mean,
that's fine with us. Julia, is that workable?
and I
Yes,
don't
that's
know,
no problem.
I don't know that it needs to be a single item. We can put it together with whatever other items are on there, but I think it
Well,
needs to be.
it's just the timing is that normally someone has to get their application in like the day or two after. And what Juliana Cherry is proposing is that we just go ahead and book it for the next meeting.
Yeah.
I have heard from staff that there is a minor subdivision that would also potentially be added to the August 3rd agenda under matters from staff. Maybe we could discuss a time to meet on August 3rd and just really settle the time now.
I'm unsure if, 2 p.m. was the time selected for today. I'm not sure, given that it'd be a shorter agenda, how the review board feels in terms of timing. An hour may be sufficient to do a conference and this one additional subdivision item. Entirely up to you.
2 works for me.
Clock works for me. In case it does go a little longer, I'd rather be on err on the side of earlier than later.
Agreed.
Does that work for
2
you
o'clock.
as staff?
2 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
And Bruce, does
All
it
right.
work for you, 2 o'clock on the 3rd?
Yes,
Yeah,
that would be fine for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
I
with that,
move-
we'll have a meeting at 2 o'clock on August 3rd then to discuss this item and then as well as this potential additional application for the minor subdivision for a conference. So
Thank you.
I move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Very successful first virtual meeting that we've had for MHRB. The time is 5:19 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
hey,
you.
I
Chair.
really
Thank you very-
appreciate all of you being here and getting through your
You as
first.
well.
It will only get better. So
Thank you. I think everything went well. Thank you very much. Okay. Have a good evening. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.